Ever since Ariel stepped on a land, she hadn't once seen her family. Not her regal grand matron, whose silver crown matched the wisdom in her stern yet loving eyes. Not her father, the Sea King, whose voice could still the tide and whose warmth always lingered behind his dignity. Not her radiant sisters, who once swam alongside her like streaks of living coral. She had left them all behind, for love, for curiosity, for a dream. Rhine, watching her expression darken with guilt, offered a gentle smile. "They've never stopped watching over you, Ariel," he said softly. "Not for a moment. Your sisters, the grand matron, your father, every one of them has followed your journey with care." He held up a crystal shimmer in his palm, light flickering from within. "I used magic to share your story with them. Every moment you've spent with Prince Eric, every hardship and triumph, they've witnessed it all, and they send you nothing but their blessings." Ariel's eyes welled with tears, her breath hitching. "So, they never turned away from me." Her voice cracked. "And yet I was selfish. I left them. I chose this path without looking back. I abandoned the sea, my people, just to chase a human soul, a fleeting love. And now they're sacrificing so much for me." Ryan shook his head, his tone firm but kind. "No, Ariel, don't reduce your journey to selfishness. You didn't abandon them. You led them." He gestured toward the distant temple, where wedding bells were being prepared to ring. "This isn't just your story anymore. It never was." He stepped closer, his voice lowering, rich with intensity. "Prince Eric spoke of a perfect ending, one where the king of Western Asia blesses your marriage. You walk down the aisle in silk and song, and the whole kingdom cheers your love. History remembers you as a queen. But what then, Ariel?" he continued. "What happens a century later, when your names are etched on a stone like every other king and queen before you? The world above will celebrate your fairy tale, but no one will know the truth. No one will remember the kingdom beneath the waves. No one will know your sister's laughter, or your father's sorrow, or the beauty of the coral palaces." His eyes darkened. "And the next mermaid who falls in love with a human? She'll have no legacy to guide her, no truth to anchor her dreams. Only the same lies, the same superstitions. She will chase her hope and vanish like sea foam." Ariel's hands trembled. She stared at him, lost in the swell of emotions. "So tell me, Ryan, how do I stop this? How do I change the future? How do I protect others from the pain I've endured?" He met her gaze, steady and unwavering. "You marry Prince Eric," he said, "but not in secret, not as a girl hiding her truth. Let the world see you, Ariel, the mermaid princess of the Sea Kingdom. Let your love be real, not just in heart, but in name. Let them all witness a miracle, the union of sea and shore." Ariel gasped, but Rhine pressed on, his voice rising with conviction. "If you do this, it won't just be a wedding. It will be history rewritten. Humans and merfolk alike will see it and understand that we are not monsters or myths, but people. If the world knows that a mermaid can love, can be loved, can stand beside a prince, everything changes." He stepped back and extended his hand. "And you won't be alone. Your family has already begun to act, not just at the harbor, but far beyond. The Sea King is on the move. The Sea Kingdom does not fight for you alone, Ariel. They fight for the next generation, for all who come after." As Rhine spoke the final words of his incantation, white mist coiled around their feet. Their forms shimmered, twisted, and transformed into birds. With a gust of wind, they took flight toward the temple. Behind them, chaos erupted at the harbor. Another warship groaned and split apart, timbers cracking as a wave of seawater surged through its hull. Masts snapped like twigs. The gilded flag of Enderland spiraled into the sea. The emblem of Enderland's navy disappeared beneath the waves, swallowed by the very ocean it once sought to conquer. "The 12th ship is down," a mermaid whispered, gliding through the currents. As Master Rhine ordered, they never stood a chance. These human ships aren't made to face attacks from below. In the depths, mermaids coordinated with silent precision. Some rode the backs of colossal sea beasts. Others wielded enchanted blades, piercing wood and iron with ease. And among them, 5 regal mermaid princesses, draped in flowing fins of pearl and coral, gazed up toward the surface, eyes locked on a distant temple. They could feel it. Their youngest sister was there. "Ariel, please succeed," one whispered. "The hope of our world swims with you." As messages passed swiftly between currents, they reached the Sea King himself. He stood at the edge of a whirlpool, trident in hand, watching the horizon with calm determination. "My king," a mermaid cried, "a storm is coming, one of the century's storms. The human fleet cannot withstand it." "Then let it come," the Sea King said with a grim smile. "We'll follow them into the heart of it." Far above, on the polished deck of the Western Asia Kingdom's flagship, the king raised his goblet, utterly unaware. "Ah, what fine weather we sail under," he said, glancing up at the moonlit sea. The waves glittered like crushed stars. And then, whoosh, a sudden wind howled across the waters, snapping ropes and flaring sails. The sky darkened. The moon disappeared behind a rolling wall of cloud. The sea began to churn. What's happening? The wind. The storm had begun. And beneath those rising waves, an ancient power surged. A reckoning had come. Without warning, the ship jolted violently. Above, the sky dimmed as the moonlight that once kissed the deck disappeared behind a monstrous black cloud. Sailors looked up. What had been a gentle night sky now churned with menace. The silver moon vanished, swallowed whole by a moving mass of shadows. Then came the sea's fury. Waves rose like mountains, surging with unrelenting force. Thunder cracked in the distance, and the wind howled through the rigging. Ominous storm clouds rolled in, smothering the horizon. "A storm! A dreadful one!" someone screamed. Panic erupted. Sailors raced to lower the sails, their hands trembling as ropes slipped through their fingers. The ship tilted, groaning under the weight of the sky itself. A wave, as black as the void, slammed into the vessel. The ship shook from keel to mast, throwing the king down hard onto the slick wooden deck. His crown skidded across the boards as he gasped for breath. More waves followed, each taller, each crueler. They crashed down with bone-snapping force, threatening to rip the masts out like brittle branches. Freezing rain lashed the crew, and lightning tore across the heavens in jagged bursts of light, turning night into sudden, blinding day. Amid the chaos, the mighty flagship of the Western Asia Kingdom looked like a child's toy in a cruel god's bathtub. Crack! 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 Timbers split and screamed as the hull bent and fractured. Painted wood, once a symbol of royal pride, broke apart. Masts snapped. Rigging flailed like the arms of drowning men. The ship pitched forward, one half already swallowed by the sea. Whoosh! Ice-cold water rushed in through the lower decks. Screams echoed below. "Protect His Majesty," the captain bellowed, but the storm devoured his voice. The royal guards closed in around the king, struggling to form a shield with their bodies. Rain stabbed at their faces like needles. Barrels and debris rolled uncontrollably across the tilting deck, threatening to crush them. But what could men do against the sea? Their blades were useless. Their armor, heavy and hollow. "Why now?" the king whispered to the storm, his voice cracking. "Why must I face this tempest now of all times?" Only hours earlier, he'd received news of joy. His son, Prince Eric, was to marry the princess of Enderland. He hadn't even seen his son in his ceremonial robes. He hadn't seen him take his bride's hand. I wonder, is Eric safe? Gripping the slick railing, his soaked robes clinging to his body, the king was adrift in memory and fear. As death loomed, reflection came. "Eric, you always dream too boldly, chase too fiercely, but you have courage. You are reckless, yes, but the foolishness of youth is part of becoming wise. You are better than your idle brother, who knows only indulgence. You are the crown prince, the future of our kingdom. But these words, I fear, will never reach you. I will not live to see you again." He imagined Eric standing beneath golden arches, surrounded by oil lamps, pledging himself to a bride he'd barely met. "When you hear of my death, you will take my place. I've secured the alliance. Enderland's navy will protect us. Its markets will trade with us. Our lands will thrive. But you are still too young. I never had time to teach you the truths behind power, the serpents hiding behind smiles. The king was still lost in these thoughts when a new chill took him. He was no longer on the ship. He was in the sea. The world turned to salt and darkness. Water rushed into his nose and lungs, burning him from within. He kicked and thrashed, but it was no use. Then, through the murky waters, he saw them. Figures, elegant, swift, unearthly. They weaved through the waves like streaks of light. Not human. Tails instead of legs. Mermaids. Dozens. Hundreds. He blinked through the salt and fury. His heart froze, not from the cold, but from wonder. Are they here to help? He remembered what his attendant once said, that the legends were wrong. That mermaids were not demons of the deep, but guardians. A wave crashed over his head. Everything went black. Then a hand. Firm. Warm. It gripped his arm and pulled. He broke the surface, coughing, choking. And before him stood a being unlike the rest. A regal figure with a proud bearing, crowned with coral, robes woven from gleaming fish scales, and wielding a golden trident. The Sea King. His voice rose like thunder, not of the storm, but of something older, something greater. There are many humans in the water. Their ship is lost to the sea, but they breathe air. We must not let them drown. He raised the trident skyward. Power hummed in the depths. Save them all. Take them to the nearest island. At his command, the mermaids surged into action. They lifted drowning sailors, guards, servants, anyone they could find, keeping their heads above water. Some men screamed in fear. Others stared in awe. The mermaids, they're saving us. They're real, and they're helping us. So many at once. The old stories lied. They're not monsters. They reached out with trembling hands, clinging to fins and scales like lifelines. For the first time in history, sailors didn't fear mermaids. They rejoiced in their presence. The Sea King raised his trident once more. O ancient sea, calm your wrath. Let us carry these souls to safety. Meanwhile, in Enderland, the royal capital, once tranquil, was in chaos. The storm had thrown the port into disarray. Guards shouted over one another. A sea beast had breached the docks. Another royal ship had sunk, and amidst the confusion, 3 birds slipped through a temple window. Soft crack. As they landed, they shimmered, transforming in a haze of mist. Rhine, Aurora, and one more stood in human form once again. Aurora frowned. Wasn't this supposed to be a wedding? Where is everyone? The grand temple was eerily empty. Lamps still burned with fragrant oil. Golden altars gleamed, but the hall was silent. Because everyone, prince, bride, priest, nobles, was no longer in this world. They were trapped inside a mirror. And that mirror? The old witch had taken it, hidden it far from reach. Rhine's eyes narrowed. So it was her all along, the first witch of Enderland, the most powerful of them all, and the true architect of this catastrophe.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Our enemies already know that Ariel is a mermaid. The reason for this hastily arranged wedding is to ensure she turns into sea foam by dawn. They are doing everything they can to stop us, especially Ariel, from meeting Prince Eric. Clearly, as long as we reunite, fate will shift in our favor, unraveling their schemes and Enderland's entire conspiracy. Despite the dire situation, Rhine remained calm. Teacher, please help us find where Prince Eric is. Aurora said. Rhine nodded slightly and pulled out a crystal ball. He placed one of Eric's buttons on it. A brilliant blue light radiated from the orb. After examining the scene within, Rhine summarized. Prince Eric isn't near us, but he's not far away either. It's as if he no longer exists in this world. This means that he and the Enderland princess have been transported into a different realm, a hidden space beyond reality, by either the old witch or another Enderland court mage. As long as we find the gateway to that space, I can break through and rescue Prince Eric. Aurora clenched her fists, furious. That damn old witch. Of course, it's her doing again. Without hesitation, she pulled a tinderbox from her pocket and struck it swiftly. Whoosh! A massive dog appeared before her, its eyes as large as teacups. Find Prince Eric, Aurora commanded. The dog sniffed the air, moving left and right before shaking its head and sticking out its tongue in apology. Because Eric isn't in the real world? Aurora realized the issue and gave a new order. Find the entrance to the other world. No one within the mirror world had realized they were in another realm. They remained blissfully unaware that the peaceful scenery outside was a fabricated illusion, that the temple's doors could no longer be opened. Through the windows, the world looked unchanged. Stars twinkled in the night sky. A soft breeze swayed the silver moon, revealing it from behind the clouds. Ships moved in and out of the harbor. Red lanterns lit the streets, celebrating the wedding of the prince and princess. There was no chaos, no noise. A perfect illusion of peace. Inside the temple, the musicians continued to play joyful wedding melodies. No one knew of the pandemonium raging outside in the port of Enderland's royal capital. Prince Eric, though resting, still felt dazed. The combined effects of alcohol, memory-erasing drugs, and the princess's enchanted fragrance had left him mentally clouded, his thoughts a tangled mess. "R.A., quick, princess, continue with the sacred ceremony. Today is a joyous occasion. Isn't the prince before you your heart's desire?" The old witch urged from the sidelines. The Enderland princess nodded softly. From the very start, she had been deliberately stalling, coming up with excuses like, "Eric still doesn't seem well. Let's wait a little longer." But every few minutes, the old witch pushed her again. She couldn't delay much longer. "This is strange. I should be overjoyed at my wedding. Yet I keep hesitating," the princess thought. Still, she took Eric's hand and led him back up the flower-adorned altar. The red flowers around them bloomed in full splendor, their scent intoxicating. 1,000 golden oil lamps cast a warm glow, illuminating the prince and princess's flawless faces. The joyful music swirled around them. Since Prince Eric couldn't even recite his vows, he merely followed gestures, symbolically completing the ceremony as the priest declared the wedding concluded. The old witch let out a slow breath. The wedding is nearly done. Once the first light of dawn touches the Enderland royal banner, everything will be set in stone. I've hidden the mirror in an impossible-to-find location. No one will ever locate it, and no one will ever free Eric and the princess. As she thought this, she discreetly tapped on the locked temple doors. A ghostly blue vortex appeared, visible only to her. This was her exit, leading back to reality. Everyone's attention was fixed on the bride and groom. No one noticed her vanish into the vortex. Time to deal with whatever disturbances have erupted outside. It sounds like chaos out there. The city was bedlam. Cries filled the air. The thunder of cavalry hooves and the clatter of boots echoed across the streets. Amidst the chaos, a dog with teacup-sized eyes darted through the city under the cover of darkness. Some bystanders gasped at the strange sight, but no one paid much attention. "Wait, I just saw a huge dog run past." "Ignore it. Probably some court magician's familiar." "Wait, I know that dog. 6 months ago, on the battlefield against the Rose Kingdom, I saw it toss my commander into the air, shattering him to pieces. I still have nightmares about it. Why is that beast here? Who cares? It's just a big dog. Focus. We need to get to the port. A giant sea monster is attacking the ships." Rhine, Aurora, and Ariel followed the dog as it zigzagged through the streets of the capital. For the first time, Ariel felt grateful for the potion Rhine had given her, the one that removed the pain of walking on human legs. Without it, she would have never been able to keep up. "Something's wrong," Aurora exclaimed, panicked. "It keeps stopping at random mirrors all over the city, storefront windows, household mirrors, even decorative ones. Every time we reach one, Rhine checks with his crystal ball, but Eric is never inside." Rhine calmly explained. That old witch must have enchanted hundreds of mirrors across the city. Each one could theoretically be a portal to another world. Of course, she can only activate one at a time. The one holding Eric and the princess. Then how we find the right one? Aurora cried. Ariel doesn't have time. If we don't fix this before dawn, she'll turn into sea foam. Ariel clenched her fists, lowering her head. I'm useless. I can't help at all. I can't do anything to find Eric. The mermaid silently wept in her heart. Wait, Aurora's eyes lit up. If the potion to regrow Ariel's tail can make her a mermaid again, can it break the curse? Ryan shook his head firmly. The curse was set in stone the moment she drank the first potion. Simply turning back into a mermaid won't erase it. There's a way to break it, but it's far more cruel. Ariel must personally stab Eric through the heart, letting his blood spill onto her feet. Only then will the world forgive her existence as a human and return her to a mermaid. Ariel's voice trembled. Even if Eric stood before me, I would never do that. Ryan believed her, because in the original story, that was exactly what she had chosen. Wait, Aurora brightened again. Eric loves Ariel. Even if they aren't married, their love is stronger than most. Doesn't that mean Ariel might have already gained an immortal soul? Ryan smiled. You're thinking the right direction. Love isn't limited to a wedding vow or ceremony. In theory, if they spend enough time together, Ariel could gradually obtain an immortal soul. But Ryan's smile faded. They simply haven't had enough time. Without the wedding ritual to accelerate the process, Eric's love alone isn't strong enough yet. Aurora's excitement vanished. Ariel's face darkened. Then Ryan leaned in, his voice soft but firm. Ariel, don't worry. I promise you, even when dawn arrives, you will be safe. Ryan's voice was calm, carrying an unshakable confidence that made people trust him unconditionally. Why? Ariel couldn't understand his words, but she chose to believe in him. Why does Ryan say I'll be fine? And why is he whispering? Teacher, Aurora anxiously turned to Ryan. I'm completely lost right now. Please help us. Ryan spoke with the same composed tone. At the time, I was experimenting, seeing if I could successfully brew a potion that could transform human legs into a fishtail. Then, out of nowhere, I received a prophecy. Fate is unpredictable like that. Sometimes, it just throws you a random hint. Mirror world, inside the replicated temple. Festive music filled the air. Behind the bride and groom, countless oil lamps flickered warmly, like stars twinkling in the night sky. The gathered guests looked toward the prince and princess at the altar, offering their sincere blessings. The wedding had been so rushed that many who should have witnessed the union of the prince and princess hadn't even had time to arrive. Most of those present were musicians playing ceremonial tunes, the temple priest officiating the ceremony, and a handful of noble guests whom the old which had gathered to fill the seats. The next step is for the bride and groom to drink the celebratory wine, the priest announced. Eric remained in a daze, his mind still reeling from the loss of his memories. He was operating purely on instinct. He poured the brown liquid into his cup and drank it down in one gulp. Wait a moment, Eric. The little princess suddenly noticed something amiss and kindly pointed it out. I think you took the wrong drink. The wrong drink, Eric mumbled, confused. His gaze fell onto the empty bottle on the table. That bottle had originally contained the brown potion. Now it was completely empty. He didn't remember who had given it to him, but the sight of the bottle filled him with an inexplicable sense of warmth and familiarity. If something happens to me, I should drink this. The thought arose from deep within his instincts, and it was precisely this gut feeling that had compelled him to down the potion. Suddenly, Eric lost his balance and collapsed onto the ground. Ah, help! What's happening to Prince Eric? Panicked cries filled the temple. Even the priest, who had been reciting blessings, turned pale with fright. Noticing the stunned expressions around her, the little princess of Enderland also gasped in horror. Eric, too, was momentarily stunned before lowering his gaze toward his own body. His legs were gone. In their place was a long, shimmering fishtail. He now looked exactly like the merfolk of legend. A monster! A monster! A mermaid? Why did Prince Eric turn into a mermaid? Oh my God, what is happening? The musicians stopped playing, and the bridesmaids and groomsmen cowered in the corners. The crowd stared at the prince, now a creature of the sea, with wide, terrified eyes. Only the little princess of Enderland remained standing where she was. Though her eyes were filled with shock, the warmth in her gaze never faded. "Eric, what's going on with you?" she murmured. You must be hiding something, aren't you?" Eric's body trembled. His hands clutched his fishtail, fingers running over the smooth scales, confirming that it was indeed his own tail. He stared at it in a daze, completely frozen. Then, as his vision blurred and the world seemed to be swallowed by misty haze, Eric realized something. Tears were overflowing from his eyes. He remembered. He remembered everything. Just like that, all the forgotten memories rushed back to him. The way people on land had once looked at her, and her kind. He remembered another figure, another person who had once had the same fishtail as his. He remembered the scene he had once glimpsed in a crystal ball, the moment she had braved the raging sea to save him, dodging shattered planks and broken masts, heedless of the danger to herself. He remembered how she had ventured deep into the coral forest, begging the sea hag for a potion that would give her legs so she could meet him on land. He remembered the way he had once held her hand, walking through the palace halls as every passerby marveled at the grace in her steps, steps that had once been a tale. Every memory, once buried, now surfaced, because those memories weren't like footprints on the shore, washed away with each passing tide. They were carved into the unyielding stone, bittersweet, unforgettable. "Ariel! My Ariel!" Eric cried out, his voice raw. "Where is Ariel? Where am I? Why am I here?" Panic and confusion surged through him as he glanced frantically around. The past hour flooded his mind, especially this absurd and hastily arranged wedding. It was all like a terrible nightmare. Hearing Eric call out a stranger's name, the little princess pieced together the clues. The prince's strange behavior, his inconsistent words, and a realization struck her. Her eyes stung. "I remember now. I understand everything." Eric shouted. "I was cursed. Someone made me forget the one I love, to force me into this wedding." Eric struggled to move, awkwardly dragging his unfamiliar, uncooperative fishtail across the floor. Half in self-mockery, half in apology, he turned to the little princess of Enderland and said, "I'm sorry. As I told you before, the one I love is another girl. The girl who once saved me. She's a mermaid. She drank a potion that split her tail into legs, leaving behind everything she knew, just so she could meet me on land. And so we could stay together. We sought out a great magician and begged him to craft a potion that would turn us both into mere folk, so we could return to the sea together." The little princess was stunned. The sheer weight of Eric's words, his brief but earth-shattering confession, left her completely unable to process it. It sounded like something out of a fairy tale. No, even more fantastical than a fairy tale. She muttered, as if in a daze. "So that's it. The witch must have laced your drink with a potion to cloud your mind and memory." Rushing forward, she knelt beside the newly transformed prince, steadying his unbalanced body. Guilt filled her gaze as she met his dark eyes. "I'm so sorry, Eric. I truly didn't know. I never would have let you drink that potion if I had." Eric clenched his fists, anger boiling in his chest. A deception. This entire thing was a massive deception. His voice trembled with fury. "They would rather rewrite my memories than let us be together. There must be some deeper scheme behind all of this." He tried to stand, but without legs, the attempt was futile. And in that moment, another realization struck him. When Ariel first came to land, she must have struggled the same way. That's why, after she had dragged his unconscious body to shore, she could only watch him from the waves, unable to step onto land herself. The sea and the land, a chasm that separated humans and merfolk. The little princess bit her lip, her expression complicated. "I can't stay here any longer. We have to leave. We have to put an end to this ridiculous farce of a wedding." Gritting his teeth, Eric began to claw at the floor, inching his way toward the temple doors. At the same time, chaos erupted around them. No one was paying attention to his words anymore. They were too busy panicking. Someone tried to open the temple doors, to escape, but no matter how hard they pulled, the doors remained tightly shut. "This isn't right. The doors won't open." were trapped inside. Princess of Enderland and Prince Eric stared at the tightly sealed doors, and in that instant, everything became clear. This wedding had been nothing more than a conspiracy from the very beginning. Prince Eric thought of the curse weighing upon Ariel. Looking at the festive decorations around him, he suddenly realized the enemy's plan. Rage surged through him, and he wished nothing more than to cut down the mastermind behind this scheme with his sword. The girl I loved took on a terrible curse just to walk on land. When the first dawn of my marriage with someone else arrives, her heart will shatter, and she will dissolve into sea foam. I have to leave here immediately. Who came up with such a wicked plan? The young princess supported Prince Eric's trembling frame, gathering all her courage to point out the true culprit. Eric, the one behind all of this, is our Enderland court, the old witch who accompanied the delegation to the Western Asia Kingdom. You saw her in the grand hall of the palace. She wasn't sure if more people were involved in the scheme. Perhaps even her own father, the Emperor of Enderland, a man who had never known mercy. The beautiful bride, draped in her wedding gown, lowered her head, her entire body sinking weakly to the floor. The delicate veil of fine-spun silk draped over her in disarray. So in the end, I'm just a pawn without free will. When all this madness unfolded, I knew nothing and could do nothing. The only role I could play was that of a bride, a mere piece in this dark conspiracy. The young princess thought back to her first encounter with Prince Eric, how he had lain on the shore, pale as death. She hadn't known at the time that the dying, handsome young man before her was a foreign prince. When she later learned that the prince from the Western Asia Kingdom, the one she was engaged to, was the very boy she had saved, she had been overwhelmed with joy. It had felt like a dream, an impossible miracle come true. She had been so happy, believing it to be a fated encounter. But now, standing in the wreckage of the wedding, listening to the panicked shouts around her, and learning of the hidden truths and sinister plots from Prince Eric's own mouth, she couldn't help but wonder, was that fated encounter also orchestrated? After all, wasn't it that same old witch who had instructed her to go to the forest temple to learn royal etiquette? Could it be that even her happiest dream had been nothing more than a carefully arranged deception, a piece of a much larger conspiracy? A crushing sense of powerlessness nearly overwhelmed the beautiful bride. Through her tear-blurred vision, beneath the veil over her head, she suddenly saw a sight she would never forget. Prince Eric, now with a mermaid's tail, struggling to move. He pushed himself along the ground with his hands, using his tail to propel himself bit by bit toward the temple doors, desperately trying to push them open. Afterward, he and the others attempted the windows and other exits, but even the seemingly open pathways were blocked by an invisible barrier. None of the panicked guests trying to escape understood the truth. The force keeping them trapped wasn't physical walls, but the limits of this mirrored replica space. This place was no larger than what they could see. Prince Eric, it looks like we won't be able to escape using ordinary methods, the princess mused, suddenly struck by an idea. Besides that potion, do you have any other magical tools? Magical tools? Prince Eric was momentarily stunned before something clicked in his mind. My bag. There's a silver mirror inside. Take it out. The young princess did as he said, retrieving the mirror and handing it to him. This was the communication device that magician Rhine had once gifted Ariel in the ocean, and Ariel had passed it on to him. With it, they could contact Rhine. It's almost as if fate arranged this. Everything is falling into place. Prince Eric murmured in amazement, lifting the mirror. He followed the method Ariel had taught him, making sure his face was fully reflected in the glass as he spoke of their predicament. Inside Rhine's hands, the crystal ball glowed with an eerie blue light, brighter than ever before. The silver-haired youth showed no surprise. He wasn't even particularly excited. He simply gazed at the crystal ball, watching Prince Eric's face appear within it. That direction, Rhine pointed toward a nondescript building in the distance, one that looked no different from an ordinary house. The next second, the young magician stowed away the crystal ball, placed his hands on Ariel and Aurora's shoulders, and in an instant, their figures blurred and vanished. A a teleportation spell. As long as the destination was visible and not too far away, familiarity wasn't necessary. With a boom, a swirling mist erupted, and the three of them reappeared. They were now inside an empty warehouse. In the corner stood a full-length mirror, but it did not reflect the outside world as it should have. Instead, it showed the chaotic wedding scene inside. "Break that mirror," Rhine said. "That will let Prince Eric and the others out." Just as the three stepped forward to shatter the glass, a violent explosion rang out. A black blaze burst forth ahead of them, scattering sparks in all directions. Emerging from the flames was the grotesque old witch, draped in a tattered black cloak. Beside her stood a warrior clad in full armor, gripping a massive greatsword. The black sparks flickered around them, falling like dark stars. "You actually found this place?" The old witch's eyes widened in shock. How was this possible? Which part of her flawless plan had gone wrong? A mermaid? Who would have thought you'd managed to gain the help of the Rose, Kingdom's magician? The old witch's twisted expression grew darker. "But even if you found this place, it doesn't matter." She turned to the armored warrior and commanded, "Go, kill them." The warrior stepped forward, blocking the mirror and the old witch behind him. "He's one of Enderland's most renowned warriors," the old witch sneered. "A man who has slain colossal sea monsters, an invincible force on the battlefield, strong enough to rival an entire battalion." With a deafening roar, the warrior charged forward. His thunderous battle cry shook the entire warehouse. His massive greatsword swung high, slicing through the air with terrifying force, aiming directly at Rhine's head. Clang! A burst of crimson sparks flew. The greatsword struck something solid, bouncing back. The sheer force of the impact sent the warrior stumbling several steps backward, nearly knocking him off balance. But what truly shocked him was the fact that his attack hadn't been blocked by a weapon, a shield, or any form of armor. No, standing in front of the two others, blocking his attack, was a little golden-haired girl, and she had taken the full force of his greatsword strike with her head. What kind of monster is this? Before the warrior could react, the golden-haired girl shot forward like an arrow released from its bow. In a flash, she was right in front of him, her sword already drawn. Clang, clang, clang. In the blink of an eye, the two super warriors had exchanged multiple blows. At first glance, they seemed evenly matched. Meanwhile, the old witch and Rhine stood off against each other, wary and unmoving, as if bound by an unspoken agreement not to act yet. That little girl, what kind of monster is she? She's actually fighting Antolin to a standstill? He's the kind of warrior who could instill fear in an entire army. The old witch's voice was filled with shock. "No, it's not a standstill," Rhine corrected. "How could it be a standstill?" The old witch took a closer look. At the start of the fight, Aurora's movements were still somewhat unrefined. But as the battle progressed, she became increasingly fluid, her actions more and more precise. She was quickly adapting to her opponent's rhythm, reading every block, every dodge, and gradually seizing control. The powerful warrior, despite his massive frame, was starting to falter. Yet, what truly terrified him wasn't just that he was losing ground. It was the realization dawning upon him. This girl was learning his moves. She was grasping his rhythm, understanding his attacks before they landed, predicting his steps before he even took them. This incredible learning speed. This was the gift Aurora had been blessed with. In her usual studies, literature, mathematics, painting, Aurora had shown remarkable talent, far surpassing her peers. But due to her age and limited experience, she had never reached the level of true geniuses or masters. She had merely dipped her toes into many fields, never fully excelling in any. But in battle, this talent was magnified exponentially. As long as she kept fighting strong opponents, she would adapt, absorb their techniques, and grow infinitely stronger. This was her first time battling another super warrior. Before this, the soldiers she had faced had been utterly powerless against her. They couldn't even withstand a single casual strike. But this Enderland warrior, though weaker than her, was still leagues beyond ordinary humans. This was, without a doubt, an invaluable learning opportunity. From the start, Aurora had deliberately held back, refraining from using her invulnerability to recklessly attack. Instead, she chose to dodge and engage in an extended duel. She was studying, memorizing his every motion, engraving each subtle movement into her mind. After just a minute or two, Aurora had completely mastered the warrior's combat rhythm. She could feel herself growing stronger. There was no need to hold back anymore. With a sudden burst of speed, she launched a lightning-fast offensive. Swish! Anticipating her opponent's defenses and dodges, she twisted her blade past the warrior's massive sword, aiming directly at the gap in his armor. This ends now. A deadly strike. But, clang! Sparks exploded in the air, scattering across the ground. Aurora staggered back, forced several steps away by the sheer impact of her own strike. The warrior's armor glowed with layers upon layers of intricate runes, forming an enigmatic pattern. What? Aurora's eyes widened in shock. Ha! The old witch cackled. I used my most precious herbs to inscribe enchantments upon that armor. Runes that make it impenetrable by blade or flame, immune to poison and corrosion. That armor is an unbreakable fortress, and its protection will last until dawn. ROS. Despite her gloating, a flicker of distress crossed the witch's face. She had poured everything into today's plan. Her trump cards, her most treasured resources, all of them. Failure was simply not an option. With Aurora momentarily pushed back, the Enderland warrior advanced. Now that he had experienced the full extent of his armor's protection firsthand, his confidence surged. The full-plate suit covered him completely, helmet, visor, everything, leaving not a single weak point. With such absolute defense, he had nothing to fear. The battle resumed. Fierce gales tore through the warehouse, the clash of metal ringing in the air. The sheer force of the battle shook the entire structure, causing dust to rain down from above. Cracks spread across the ceiling, walls, and floor. Yet despite the chaos, one truth was evident. The warrior was far outmatched in both skill and agility. A towering figure over 3 meters tall, he fought with brute force alone, resorting to relentless brawling tactics in a desperate attempt to keep up with Aurora. But the fight dragged on. 2 warriors, both invulnerable to blades, locked in combat. How could such an absurd battle ever have a clear conclusion? Meanwhile, Ryan had been striking his tinderbox repeatedly, summoning his 3 magical dogs to attack the old witch. The witch retaliated with wicked curses, hurling dark spells toward the young magician. But each time, Ryan sensed the attack a split second before it landed, his prophetic power warning him of danger just in time. He effortlessly teleported away before the curses could reach him. In a corner of the warehouse, Ariel held her breath, doing her best to stay out of the way. By the seas, not only is magician Ryan unbelievably strong, but Aurora is just as terrifying. I've never seen such an intense and overwhelming battle. She bit her lip, anxiety welling inside her. The 2 human friends I made in the ocean, are they both truly this extraordinary? Her gaze shifted past the battle, landing on the full-length mirror behind the old witch and the warrior. Reflected in the glass was a grand wedding ceremony, a sacred hall illuminated by countless oil lamps, blood-red flowers in full bloom. Yet chaos had erupted inside. People were panicked, shouting in alarm. And there, among them all, she saw him. Prince Eric, dressed in a groom's attire. But his lower half, it was no longer human legs. A beautiful mermaid's tail now shimmered where his feet should have been. Eric. He already drank the potion that turned him into a mermaid. Ariel's heart surged like a raging storm, one just as fierce as the tempest that had first brought them together. But I can't do anything to help. She clenched her fists, her gaze dropping in helplessness. The enchanted mirror was right there, the key to Eric's imprisonment, so close she could almost touch it. Yet all she could do was hide in the shadows, powerless and afraid of being caught in the battle's crossfire. Then, she noticed something. A window, right beside her. and beyond it, the endless, deep blue ocean. Waves crashed against the jagged cliffs below, foaming into white spray. This isn't Interland's harbor. No mere folk here. This must be another sea entirely. Her heart leapt with hope. If the ocean is right there, maybe I can do something. With newfound determination, she slipped out the window. She was still wearing the boy's clothes Eric had tailored for her. Practical attire meant for horseback riding through lush forests, for scaling mountaintops to touch the clouds. And now, in this critical moment, it proved invaluable, light, unrestricted, perfect for movement. Back in the warehouse, the Interland warrior was still stubbornly grappling with Aurora, using his enchanted armor to drag out the fight. So focused was he on his desperate battle that he failed to notice. A bird, a small, inconspicuous bird that had silently flown behind him. Tap! It barely brushed against his back. Shatter! The bird swooped down, landing in the center of the warehouse. A swirl of mist engulfed it, and Rhine stood in its place. Foolish, foolish old witch. You really shouldn't have told us how your magic worked. The young magician smirked, flipping his palm over. With a whoosh, a cloud of mist burst forth, and the warrior's enchanted armor, glowing with runic power, clattered to the ground. Gone. His indestructible defense vanished. Wah! Before he could react, a sharp pain bloomed in his chest. He looked down. Aurora's sword was buried deep in his heart. Thank you for telling me how your magic works, Rhine said with a smile. In this fantasy world, where fairy tales intertwined with epic legends, supernatural battles often played out in this very manner. So many powerful mages and mystical creatures derive their strength from just a few special mechanisms. And once those mechanisms were unraveled, defeating them became all too easy. Go ahead, show me what else you've got. The old witch was gripped with terror. Desperately, she reached for the preparation she had made beforehand, intent on escaping with a full-length mirror where Prince Eric was sealed. I haven't lost yet. As long as I still have a hostage, as long as His Majesty and the court mage's resources are still at my disposal, I can't lose. Even if Prince Eric has started to recall his past, as long as he doesn't return to the Western Kingdom to testify, there will be no concrete evidence against me. If he mysteriously disappears, I'll simply pin his vanishing on these meddlesome fools. And as for the princess and the wedding guests who witnessed this chaotic scene, His Majesty will take care of them. Countless thoughts raced through her mind. Her gaze locked onto the full-length mirror in the corner. She stretched out her hand, ready to activate the enchantment that would transfer elsewhere. Don't think you've won yet. Watch as I. But Rhine had anticipated this. He raised his hand, preparing to intervene. Boom! A deafening crash erupted as the warehouse wall collapsed. A massive sea creature, resembling a giant sea serpent, burst through the wall. And perched upon its neck, singing a song of breathtaking beauty, was none other than the mermaid princess, Ariel. The impact sent the full-length mirror flying. Crash! The mirror shattered into countless shards. Thank you, Pika. Ariel finished her song, dismounted the sea serpent, and gently patted its enormous head. The sea serpent, as if it were a loyal pet, affectionately flicked out its tongue, licking the mermaid princess's hand before reluctantly retreating back into the ocean. After all, this colossal sea beast could not fully leave the water. Even when it had launched its powerful charge, its tail had remained submerged. Damn it! The old witch watched in horror as the shattered mirror released its captives. A bewildered temple priest, a panicked musician, nobles still perplexed as to why they had been summoned to this hasty wedding. And, of course, a young princess clad in a gossamer wedding gown. And beside her, Prince Eric, his lower half no longer that of a human, but a shimmering mermaid's tail. Eric! Ariel rushed forward, throwing her arms around the transformed prince. Master and princess, human and mermaid, once again they embraced. The last time they had held each other like this, one had been human, the other a mermaid. It had been in the midst of a life-threatening storm, in a night filled with danger and uncertainty. Areo! And now, on another perilous night, Amidst an even greater storm, they embraced again, only this time, their roles were reversed. Draped in her wedding gown, the princess gazed at the tightly embracing Eric and Ariel. She remembered the words Eric had once spoken, and her heart filled with conflicting emotions. As for the others who had been freed, they were utterly disoriented. They saw the familiar old witch, and then they saw the unfamiliar faces of Ariel, Rhine, Aurora, and the enormous magical dogs. They took in the scene, the rubble, the shattered mirror fragments. Where are we? Weren't we just in the temple? What in the world is going on? Someone explain. Rhine pointed at the old witch and declared, "It was her, this court which sealed you inside the mirror because she feared that Prince Eric of the Western Kingdom would expose her crimes." As his words settled, he and Aurora stepped forward, pressing in on the old witch. Damn it all. The old witch gritted her teeth, so hard it seemed as if she might spit fire from the gaps. With a snap of her fingers, she activated another preset spell. A dense cloud of black smoke exploded into the air, obscuring everyone's vision. And in that instant, the old witch flung her cloak around herself and transformed into a raven, taking off through the shattered wall and into the starlit sky above the sea. Rhine wasted no time. He too transformed. A majestic eagle shot into the air, giving chase. "Fool! Go ahead, chase me. Chase me all you want. This is Enderland's royal capital. I have countless allies here." The old witch seethed as she flew, her mind racing through possible outcomes. "Don't think you've won, Sage of the Rose Kingdom. His Majesty will send reinforcements for me. The other court mages will assist, too. This is the heart of Enderland. There are many super warriors and powerful magicians here. As long as I prevent Prince Eric from returning home to testify against me, there's still a chance to turn this around. Just you wait. Once the Emperor's forces arrive, neither you nor Prince Eric will leave this city alive." Ariel watched as Rhine and the old witch vanished into the night sky, locked in pursuit. Turning to Aurora, she asked, "Aren't you going to help him?" "No need," Aurora replied confidently. "I trust my teacher." She then turned toward Ariel and Prince Eric, his lower half still that of a mermaid. "I'll take you back to the Western Kingdom's flower ship." Prince Eric nodded. "Yes, right now, our priority is returning home and exposing this conspiracy before my father. This so-called wedding, this so-called alliance. There are too many hidden schemes behind it." He glanced down at himself, at his shimmering mermaid tail. "But I can't exactly walk like this." "That's okay. Pika will help us," Ariel said with a radiant smile. She turned to the ocean and beckoned. Once more, she began to sing, a melody so beautiful, so powerful, that it resonated with every living creature in the sea. Obediently, the massive sea serpent raised itself halfway out of the water, lowering its body like a willing steed. The three of them climbed onto the serpent's back, traveling across the water toward Enderland's royal harbor. The sea was tranquil, bathed in the silvery glow of the moon. The moonlight shimmered on the waves, forming a path of silver leading into the distance. A cool sea breeze brushed against them. Seagulls called softly in the distance. On the sea serpent's back, Ariel and Prince Eric held each other close. The girl's voice rose again, weaving a melody of unparalleled beauty, her song drifting along the wind, carrying out to the horizon. Meanwhile, above the city, the chase continued. Rhine pursued the old witch relentlessly, like a shadow that would not be shaken. They soared from the skies to the sea, then from the sea to the land, shifting forms as they battled in their high-speed pursuit. One moment, they were an eagle and a raven. The next, a dolphin and a tuna. Then, a cat and a mouse. No matter what form the old witch took, no matter what tricks she employed, she could not shake the relentless hunter on her tail. Rhine teleported in bursts, vanishing and reappearing unpredictably. At times, he mimicked Ariel's enchanting song, using it to summon schools of fish that swarmed the old witch's tuna form. Other times, he returned to his original shape, pulling out his crystal ball to track her down what she tried to hide as a mouse in an abandoned house. As they chased through the royal capital streets, the old witch desperately transformed back to her true form multiple times, attempting to command the nearby soldiers to stop Rhine. But the port was already in chaos due to the merfolk's uprising. No one followed her orders. Countless thoughts flickered through her mind. Damn him. I can't shake him off. I had a whole horde of undead lurking near that alley. Yet his monstrous dogs crushed them like they were nothing. Where is everyone? This is Enderland's royal capital, isn't it? What? Why haven't they come yet? I sent the signal. Why is no one helping me? Where are the other court mages? Where are his majesty's warriors? As time passed, the old witch, who had been desperately fleeing and stalling for time, felt a growing sense of cold despair. Under the silver moonlight, the streets of the royal capital gleamed. The old witch, now back in her original form, stood still, glaring furiously at the young magician approaching her with a leisurely stride. Her eyes burned not just with anger, but with raw, uncontainable anxiety. She was exhausted. She was certain that the young magician chasing her must have expended a great deal of energy as well. But unlike her, he still had those terrifying 3 dogs. You look like you're stalling for time, waiting for someone. Ryan chuckled, striking the tinderbox several times in succession. Your luck seems particularly bad today. No one's coming to help you. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 giant dogs surrounded the old witch. The largest of them, with eyes as massive as a tower dome, loomed over her. Against such a behemoth, even the strongest of spells wouldn't be able to disable it quickly enough. No, no, no. Why? The old witch shrieked in despair, making one final, desperate struggle. In her panicked eyes, she saw the 3 enormous dogs lunging at her. Your Majesty, can't you hear my cries for help? Inside the royal palace, a man with a thick beard, a strong jaw, and an imposing presence reached out with his powerful right hand. Casually, he lifted a captured black bishop from the chessboard and discarded it to the side without hesitation. This was the Emperor of Enderland. Across from him, the hand that moved the opposing pieces was noticeably more slender and fair-skinned, clearly a woman's. Your Majesty, are you not going to send reinforcements for your court witch? The woman asked gently. She is Enderland's most powerful sorceress, after all. The Emperor's voice was calm and unwavering. What are you talking about? From start to finish, hasn't all of this simply been her doing? Drugging my daughter with an enchanted fragrance to make her fall under her spell. Attempting to turn a foreign prince into her puppet. Tricking Prince Eric into drinking a memory-erasing potion. Secretly imprisoning both the bride, the groom, and the other noble guests. The list of her crimes is endless, since she committed solely for her own selfish gain. The old witch wanted to use the prince of the Western Kingdom, future ruler of their nation, to gain influence and earn a place in the witch's coven. She foolishly believed she could deceive me. Across the chessboard, the woman laughed softly. As expected of your Majesty. I wonder, what was she even hoping for? The Emperor moved his knight. Did she really expect me to slaughter an unknown yet extraordinarily skilled magician, a little girl who possesses monstrous strength, and a foreign prince, along with his entire royal entourage, just to cover for her? For your Majesty, the Western Kingdom is merely a nation you could crush with a flick of your wrist, the woman mused. I don't fight meaningless wars, the Emperor replied coldly. Our alliance is already impossible. Losing a strategically positioned maritime kingdom as an ally is somewhat unfortunate, but does not hinder my greater ambitions. He turned his head and spoke to a waiting guard. Summon Magrito, the mage from the Middle Eastern Kingdom. Tell him that the Emperor of Enderland is willing to meet him. He claimed to have an important secret to share, did he not? Meanwhile, Eric, Ariel, and Aurora had made it safely back to the flower ship of the Western Kingdom, still anchored in the port. During the earlier chaos, many ships had been damaged or sunk, but without exception, every sunken vessel had been an Enderland warship. The flower ship of the Western Kingdom remained untouched. The sailors were stunned when they saw their prince with a mermaid's tail. Prince Eric quickly explained what had happened, how he had been transformed, how the absurd and hastily arranged wedding had unfolded, and the full extent of the treachery he had suffered. The crew cursed the old witch's deceitfulness and celebrated their prince's safe return. Splash! The grand ship hoisted its anchor, unfurling its sails. Beneath the starlit sky, it began its voyage back to the Western Kingdom, leaving behind a trail of white foam upon the sea. Ariel's sisters, along with their grand matron, briefly surfaced, waving to her before disappearing beneath the waves once more, ensuring they remained unseen by the ship's human crew. Only the lingering foam on the water marked their presence. "Tonight, the moonlight is beautiful," Eric murmured. "Don't you think so, my Ariel?" Upon the flower ship's deck, bathed in the cool sea breeze and the holy glow of the moon, the prince of the Western Kingdom and the princess of the sea embraced, then kissed. They had endured too much. They had overcome countless hardships, traversed the divide between land and sea, defied human and merfolk prejudices, challenged the will of a stubborn king, and outwitted the plots of witches and empires alike. In the long history of land and ocean, no love story had ever been so breathtaking, so unforgettable. And now, no one could keep them apart. After everything that's happened, there's no way my father will push forward an alliance with Enderland, Eric declared. And my marriage? I'm free now. Never again will I let my father use me as a pawn to marry some foreign princess for political gain. No matter what happens, my bride will only ever be you, my Ariel. Wait, something wasn't right. A sudden realization struck Eric. "Wait, Ariel," he said, gripping her hand and gazing into her sapphire blue eyes. His voice trembled. "The sun's about to rise. You won't be affected, will you?" No matter how absurd it had been, no matter how rushed or disrupted, he had still gone through a ceremonial wedding. And according to the curse, the morning after the one you love marries another, your heart will break, and you will dissolve into sea foam. Aurora's face paled at his words. "Ariel," she grabbed her mermaid friend's hand tightly, as if fearing that Ariel would vanish at any moment. The first time they had met in the sea, Ariel had still been a mermaid. Now, she stood before them as a human girl. In the distant east, the first glimmers of white light began to appear on the horizon. The sun was rising. Near the trade route between the Western Asia Kingdom and Enderland, on a deserted island, the king leaned against a tree, looking at the drenched soldiers around him, feeling as if everything that had just happened was nothing but a dream. The ruler of the Western Asia Kingdom could hardly believe he was still alive. The howling winds, the icy rain, the deafening thunder, all those terrifying sights still seemed fresh, playing over and over in his memory. "I never expected a group of merfolk to save us. It seems they really aren't the disaster-bringing evil creatures from legends." The Sea King and his fellow merfolk had rescued the king and everyone aboard the ship. Every single person had survived the dreadful storm. After bringing them safely ashore, the merfolk struck up conversations with the humans. They shared tales of the sea and curiously asked about life on land. It was a fascinating exchange. A remarkable scene unfolded along the shore of this deserted island. Hundreds of humans gathered on the beach, while in the sea before them, hundreds of merfolk floated. They spoke to each other about the wonders of land and ocean. Never before in the history of the Ocean Kingdom had such a moment occurred. Many humans realized for the first time how little they truly understood about the merfolk of the deep. Beneath the vast, deep blue ocean lay a dazzling, wondrous, and beautiful realm they knew nothing about. These merfolk were creatures much like themselves. They could love, hate, grieve, suffer, and experience joy, just as humans did. Aside from legs and tails, aside from their different homes in land and sea, were they really so different? The Sea King shared his plan with the Human King. "We can command great sea beasts. In the ocean, they are much like, what do you call them? Horses? But they are far larger than any steed. After some time, my servants will summon these giant fish and sea serpents from the Ocean Kingdom. You can ride upon their backs, and they will carry you home." Nigerian Irio. The king was overjoyed upon hearing this. The people of the sea are truly remarkable. This is far more convenient than any human vessel. In just this short time, the king had come to enjoy talking with the ruler of the sea. Unlike land kings, who were full of pretension and hypocrisy, this ocean monarch was straightforward and easygoing. By the way, it will take some time to summon the great sea beasts. The Sea King continued. This is such a rare chance to meet a large gathering of humans. Land King, why not visit my palace as a guest? The Sea King's palace? The deep sea palace, hidden beneath the crashing waves? For a moment, the king thought he had misheard. But then he heard the Sea King say, "We have a way to bring humans into the sea, though only a dozen or so at a time. Your Majesty, you may choose your most loyal attendants to accompany you to my palace." At that moment, a massive fish surfaced, its belly as clear as the purest glass. This was an idea the Sea King had come up with after Rhine and Aurora's visit to the deep sea palace. He had searched the ocean for bizarre, never-before-seen fish until he found a species suitable for carrying humans into the Sea Kingdom. "Thank you for your invitation, honorable ruler of the sea." The king's face lit up with joy. He had traveled far and wide across the land, through snow-white glaciers, into emerald forests, up towering mountain peaks where clouds drifted beneath his feet, but he had never seen the kingdom beneath the waves. The king selected a dozen of his most loyal attendants and guards, then stepped into the great fish's transparent belly. The fish slowly descended into the sea. A scream of agony rang out on the streets of Enderland's royal capital. The old witch's final desperate struggle had been crushed. One of the massive dogs had bitten her in half, ending her life completely. Rhine watched as the severed corpse fell to the ground in two pieces. The next moment, the young magician sensed a surge of magic within the city, strange fluctuations rippling through the air. A contingency spell the old, which had placed in advance, had been triggered. From the upper half of her corpse, a ghostly, translucent figure emerged. It was the old witch's own image. "Even in death, I won't let you go. Just wait. I become a vengeful spirit, a wandering ghost, and I will kill all of you. That treacherous emperor of Enderland who abandoned me. I won't spare him either." The old witch howled. She was now a drifting ghost, her human memories mostly gone, her emotions all but erased. Only obsession and an undying hatred remained. "How troublesome," Rhine muttered, hands in his pockets. Then again, in this world, human souls are immortal. Clearly, the old witch had triggered an enchantment at the moment of her death, preventing her immortal soul from losing all memory, from moving on to another world or reincarnating. Her spirit would now remain in this world, forever wandering. "I've read about this kind of necromantic magic before," Rhine said coolly. "Do you really think you still exist? You're already dead. What remains is nothing but an echo, a manifestation of lingering hatred, a fixation still bound to this world. You will never again have new desires, never again feel anything other than resentment." The old witch, now a vengeful spirit with no human rationality left, couldn't comprehend Rhine's words. Her mind was consumed by hatred. She opened her mouth, ready to curse Rhine. Suddenly, a swirling black vortex appeared on her ghostly form. Though it stirred no physical wind, it possessed a strange pull on the soul. The old witch's wraith screamed as she was sucked into the vortex, vanishing without a trace. Rhine slowly approached her corpse. After death, her soul was carried away by a preset spell to who knows where. He watched the old witch's disappearance without a hint of regret. He had yet to master soul-binding magic, so there was little he could do. Regardless, as a vengeful spirit, she had lost most of her magic and her ability to think clearly. She could no longer weave conspiracies or influence reality. She would only wander, driven by her final obsession. Rhine commanded the smallest of the three dogs to search the old witch's corpse. It retrieved a mirror. For a magician, a mirror was often a tool for communication, one that could hide many secrets. like checking call records. Ryan chuckled at the thought of his past life. He lightly touched the mirror's surface, channeling prophetic and divination magic, and murmured, "Show me the last conversation held through this mirror." The mirror's surface flickered, revealing the blurry figure of a tall woman in a black and violet robe. Despite the distortion, Ryan instantly recognized her cold expression. Black Witch Maleficent. Ryan took out his crystal ball and channeled more prophetic energy into the mirror. Maleficent's image moved, and a conversation from the past played within the glass. "What now? Didn't you just contact me yesterday? I already told you. Once you fulfill your goal, I will allow you to join us. I was just discussing with my sisters how to kill that sea hag we're about to expel from the coven in the most spectacular and amusing way. Honorable Lady Maleficent, I came to remind you about the magicians and warriors of the Rose Kingdom. I believe they're also searching for you, to kill you and break the kingdom's curse." Listening to the conversation and watching Maleficent's shifting expressions in the mirror, Ryan's suspicions were finally confirmed. Deep in thought, he murmured a single word: "The Coven of Witches." He had a premonition that with this organization's influence, his future journey would inevitably involve more dealings with them. That old, which was only a reserve member of the Coven. Once news of her death reaches them, Aurora and I will definitely be on their radar. The sea hag living in the coral forest is in danger. We need to find an opportunity to warn her. Ryan attempted to trace earlier communications through the mirror, but ultimately failed. The limits of divination meant there was only so much he could uncover. Stowing away the mirror, Ryan plucked a strand of hair from the old witch's corpse for future divination. Then, his figure disappeared into thin air. The light of dawn cast its glow upon the empty street he had just left. The sun was slowly rising over the eastern horizon. On the deck of the Western Asia Kingdom's flower ship, Prince Eric held Ariel tightly, repeating words of love over and over, as if believing that if he could love her just a little more in these final moments, an immortal soul would take root within her, saving her from dissolving into sea foam. "Ariel, once we return to the Western Asia Kingdom, as long as you are safe, we'll hold a grand wedding. It will take place on a ship at the center of the ocean, the very meeting point between the human world and the sea kingdom. That way, your grandmother, your sisters, and your father can all see you happy. I won't let my father stop us again. If he still refuses and tries to use me as a pawn for political marriage, then we'll leave together and live in a world beneath the sea." Ariel gently touched the prince's anxious, trembling face. "Don't worry about me, Eric. I think I'll be fine." Beside them, Aurora kept glancing toward the ever-brightening east. She watched as the light burst from the horizon, as dawn's whiteness drove away the night's darkness and melted the stars. She was anxious. Aurora paced restlessly, worried that things might not end as beautifully as they had hoped. They had been through so much, overcoming countless obstacles. Enderland's conspiracy had been exposed, the old witch had surely been defeated by her teacher, and they were on the verge of a happy ending. Arbates. How could Ariel fall just before dawn? Finally, the golden sun rose completely, bathing the sea in warm, radiant light. The ocean breeze blew, making the golden and purple banners aboard the ship flutter. In the distance, the cries of seagulls echoed. "Ariel, you're fine. You're unharmed." Both Aurora and Prince Eric saw it with their own eyes. Ariel was still there, perfectly safe. The dawn's light had indeed arrived, but Ariel had not turned into sea foam. It seems a rushed, interrupted wedding like that wasn't enough to trigger the curse, Prince Eric said with a relieved laugh. He lifted Ariel into his arms and kissed her again, celebrating her survival. Aurora finally let out a breath of relief, agreeing with his reasoning. Yes, that makes sense. This ceremony lacked true love, was too hasty and incomplete, and neither the bride nor groom had fully accepted it in their hearts. It couldn't possibly count as a real marriage, so Ariel remained unharmed. Just as they were about to celebrate, a calm, youthful voice rang out behind them. That's not the reason. The three of them froze. Turning around, they saw Ryan had somehow returned to the ship. He was leaning against the railing, gazing at the sunlit golden sea, letting the cool ocean breeze tousle his silver hair. Ryan turned to them with a gentle smile. Ariel is safe for one reason only. Long before this flower ship reached Enderland's royal harbor, before the old, which even set this plan into motion, Ariel had already gained an immortal soul. On the journey to Enderland, I secretly boarded the ship, approached Ariel, and performed a complex divination. That was the conclusion I reached. The three of them were stunned. So that means Prince Eric's mouth fell open in shock. Yes, Ryan said calmly. The old witch's scheme never had a single chance of succeeding. To a mermaid who had already received an immortal soul from a human who truly loved her, the curse was meaningless. They all thought back to the old witch's smug, victorious grin when she thought her plan had succeeded. Now, in light of what Ryan had revealed, she seemed nothing more than a complete fool. But, Aurora stammered, still in disbelief. Teacher, didn't you say before that Prince Eric had only known Ariel's true identity for a few days? That wasn't enough time for love alone to grant her an immortal soul. Indeed, Prince Eric's love alone was not enough. Ryan took a slow step across the deck, then turned his gaze to the shimmering golden sea in the distance. There are many forms of love in this world. It isn't just romantic love. When a human who has an immortal soul cares for a mermaid without one, when they think of her, worry for her, and hold her in their heart, a fragment of their soul splits away and merges with the mermaid's. When enough of these fragments accumulate, quantity becomes quality. An immortal soul is born within her. Aurora lowered her head. She had already understood what her teacher meant. Ariel, too, covered her mouth in realization and looked toward the silent Aurora. Me? Aurora murmured softly. Yes. Ryan smiled. Prince Eric wasn't the only human who cared for Ariel. And compared to him, who only learned her true identity about a week ago, you knew her even earlier. Aurora understood. There wasn't just one human whose love had bestowed an immortal soul upon Ariel. She was the other one. From the moment they first met in the sea, from the moment Ariel, a newly acquainted friend, shared her wish, from the moment Aurora stood up for Ariel against the sea hag out of pure righteousness, from the moment she murmured, "I feel sorry for the merfolk," in the deep blue ocean, from the moment she rushed through the dark night in desperate worry for Ariel's safety. In each of those moments, a fragment of Aurora's soul had been breaking away and merging into Ariel's. Aurora. Ariel could no longer hold back her emotions. She rushed forward and hugged the golden-haired girl, who, despite being shorter, had an extraordinary presence, with all her strength. Thank you, my human friend. You saved me. It was your constant worry for me, your care for me, that kept my heart from shattering, my body from dissolving in a sea foam. I remember, when we faced the sea hag, you said that beyond the prince, I could receive an immortal soul from another human's love. I was so shocked when I heard you say that. And now, it turns out you were right. Thank you. Aurora, suddenly being thanked and hugged like a child, flushed red in embarrassment. Sorry, Aurora, Ryan said with a gentle smile. I didn't tell you the truth earlier. I intentionally created a tense atmosphere. He explained, a newly formed immortal soul is incredibly fragile. If it were suddenly deprived of love, there was still a small chance it could dissipate. With Prince Eric at risk of losing his memory, I had to ensure absolute safety. I needed to create a constant sense of crisis, to make sure you kept worrying about Ariel, to make sure the love you gave her never wavered. Aurora nodded, completely understanding her teacher's reasoning. Prince Eric also swam over with his mermaid tail, gently stroking the girl's golden hair while expressing his endless gratitude. Seeing this, everyone suddenly remembered. Prince Eric still hadn't returned to his original form. Ryan pulled out another bottle of potion to turn a mermaid into a human and made Prince Eric drink it. Soon, he regrew his human legs, ensuring that he wouldn't have a hard time explaining things when meeting the king. Honorable Magician Ryan, I have a question, Ariel asked cautiously, her curiosity piqued. These potions that turn mermaids into humans and humans into mermaids. They don't seem all that rare, do they? Why did Ryan always seem to have these potions on hand and never look the least bit concerned about using them? That's right, the ingredients aren't expensive, and as long as you have a big enough cauldron, you can mass produce them. I can brew a few hundred bottles a day, Ryan replied. After the old witch died, he had taken the opportunity to ransack her stockpile of rare ingredients, completely emptying her stores. For a long time to come, you wouldn't have to worry about running out of bizarre potion materials. Is that so? Ariel was stunned. Back then, in order to obtain this potion from the sea hag, she had nearly lost her voice and become mute forever. For these two types of potions, the hardest ingredient to acquire is magically infused blood. That's also why the sea hag charged such a high price. She had to use her own blood, Ryan explained. But I have 3 magical dogs with regenerative abilities. I'll just take their blood instead. Poor dogs. Ariel couldn't help but think. Now that he had his legs back and was fully dressed, Prince Eric stretched out his arms under the sunlight, overjoyed. Now we're all safe and sound. Once I return to the Western Asia Kingdom, I will tell my father I want to marry Ariel. He absolutely cannot stop me this time. And how do you plan to explain Ariel's identity to your father? Ryan asked. Prince Eric was momentarily at a loss. Oh, great magician Ryan, what do you suggest I say? After struggling to come up with an answer, the prince once again turned to the ever-powerful, seemingly omniscient young magician for guidance. Just tell him the truth. Ariel is a mermaid princess from the Sea Kingdom, Ryan shrugged. Just say it outright. Prince Eric was shocked, and Ariel looked equally astonished. On the other hand, Aurora, who had been feeling awkward after receiving compliments earlier, now looked completely unfazed by Ryan's suggestion, as if she had expected it all along. This is a prophecy, a prediction, a vision from a sage, foretelling your future, Ryan said. Tell your father exactly who Ariel is, and he will allow you to be together. Arno, thank you. Prince Eric respectfully bowed to Ryan. Prophecies truly are miraculous. It's not actually that miraculous. Prophecies usually only reveal vague fragments of fate. The truly effective ones are the ones where you set a goal first and then work towards making it happen, Ryan mused internally. As he thought about this, his gaze drifted down toward the rolling waves of the ocean, as if he could see straight through the deep blue waters to the grand and majestic palace beneath. Near the Sea King's palace, the king of the Western Asia Kingdom had witnessed far too many miracles today. Through the transparent belly of the giant fish, he had personally seen the world beneath the sea. Strange and wondrous plants, palace walls built from coral, and the sea flowers blooming in the mermaid princess's garden. So this is the underwater kingdom? It's breathtaking. The king marveled, yet at the same time, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as if he had seen these scenes somewhere before. He had also seen firsthand the mermaid's ability to command schools of fish and sea beasts, and he was astounded by the talents of these children of the sea. He had learned that mermaids understood the moods of the ocean and could predict incoming storms in advance. An idea bubbled up in the king's mind. If we could form an alliance with the Sea Kingdom, that would be incredible. With mermaids foreseeing storms and commanding sea creatures, our kingdom's ships would always sail smoothly, and our fisheries would always be abundant. There are countless oysters, pearls, seashells, and corals in the ocean, things that are common to mermaids but valuable to us. If we could establish trade with the Sea Kingdom, we would profit immensely. We could use the treasures of the sea to trade for gold and silver from other nations, making our kingdom the wealthiest in the Western continent, just like those Middle Eastern countries that serve as trade hubs between the East and West. This is 1,000 times better than forming an alliance with Enderland. With that thought in mind, the king eagerly proposed his idea to the Sea King, his tone full of sincerity. Please, mighty ruler of the sea, form an alliance with our kingdom. The Sea King, of course, had already anticipated this after speaking with Ryan. Deep down, he was overjoyed. In the entire history of the Sea Kingdom, this was the first time humans had ever taken the initiative to seek an alliance with them. In the past, the Sea King had come up with many different ways to establish good relations with the humans on land, but they had all failed. But now, as he looked at the king's earnest expression, he deliberately put on an uninterested face and said coolly, "This trade you speak of, does it really matter that much to us merfolk?" The Sea King had remembered Rhine's advice. At this moment, he needed to make the other side propose the alliance on their own while he remained aloof. After all, there were plenty of kingdoms on land. It wasn't as if he had to ally with the Western Asia kingdom specifically. That's just how supply and demand worked. The king, seeing the Sea King's apparent lack of enthusiasm, grew anxious. Of course, the Sea Kingdom has never allied with any human nation before, so naturally, they wouldn't be interested in such a proposal. No, I can't let this slip away. Becoming the first human nation in history to form an alliance and trade with the Sea Kingdom. This would be an unimaginable advantage for the Western Asia Kingdom. No matter the cost, no matter how many unequal treaties we have to sign, we absolutely cannot let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip through our fingers. Your Majesty the Sea King, the king pleaded, if you agree to an alliance with us, I will use all my power as ruler to promote the beauty of mermaids, washing away all the prejudice that humans across the continent have against you. Oh, what a pleasant surprise. The Sea King had been planning to ask for this himself, but the human king had beaten him to it. He did his best to keep a straight face, suppressing his joy, and responded calmly. Oh, that does sound somewhat appealing. Just as he was about to remind the king not to go back on his word, he heard the Western Asia king continue eagerly. I know, that alone isn't enough to move you, Your Majesty. But we on land have many things that the sea does not. We have advanced craftsmanship, livestock, and an array of fine goods imported from other nations, including luxurious silk garments. Once our two nations establish trade, your people will have easy access to all of these. We could even create custom items specifically designed for underwater use. Oh, and if there is anything else your kingdom desires, we will do everything in our power to provide it, because we are allies, after all. The Sea King, who had always dreamed of forming friendships with humans, felt as though he was in a dream. Still, he maintained his composed expression and said indifferently, Very well, I will consider it. We're making a fortune. The Western Asia king was almost giddy with excitement, thinking to himself, I must strike while the iron is hot. I need to offer the Sea King an irresistible deal, one he absolutely cannot refuse. The king had already decided. Once he returned home, he would dedicate all his efforts to making this alliance a reality. As for the alliance with Enderland, that could wait. Thinking about it, the king even felt a bit resentful. Why did Prince Eric agree to marry the Enderland princess at this time? Now, delaying the Enderland alliance would be difficult. He should have granted Eric the freedom to choose his own marriage from the beginning. The Sea King continued leading the king and his attendants around on the giant fish, showing them more of the Sea Kingdom. They also met the 5 beautiful mermaid princesses. After the chaos at the Enderland royal port had been resolved, the 5 princesses had returned to the Sea King's palace. Your Majesty the Sea King, I have a question, the king asked, puzzled. Earlier, you mentioned that you have 6 daughters. Why are there only 5 princesses here? The Sea King explained, My youngest and most cherished daughter, the 6th princess of the Sea Kingdom, has always been fascinated by your human world. She obtained a potion from a magician that transformed her mermaid tail into human legs and went to live on land. My goodness! So magic can turn mermaids into humans, which means it can also turn humans into mermaids. That means there's no unbridgeable gap between the Sea Kingdom and human nations after all. The king was thrilled, and at the same time, he keenly recognized that this was his chance to express goodwill toward the Sea King. Your Majesty the Sea King, you mean to say that your youngest daughter is currently on land? The king's tone was exceptionally sincere. What is her name, and what does she look like? I will personally ensure she is well taken care of. The merfolk of the Sea Kingdom would have a hard time looking after the little princess on land. Isn't this exactly where we humans can help? We will find a princess, let her stay in the most luxurious palace, eat the finest delicacies, and wear the most exquisite and beautiful gowns. I swear, we will treat her with utmost care and protect her at all costs. After all, how dangerous must it be for such a delicate princess to be alone on land? I swear upon my title as king, once we find your youngest daughter, we will fulfill all of her reasonable wishes and never let her suffer the slightest grievance." The king was beside himself with excitement, speaking rapidly, afraid that if he left anything out, the Sea King might refuse the alliance. The Sea King nodded slightly. "That is acceptable." The king finally felt relieved. Then, another thought emerged in his mind. If my son were to marry the mermaid princess, wouldn't the alliance between our two nations be sealed for good? What a shame! Such cruel fate! Why did I arrange for Prince Eric to marry the Enderland princess? Why couldn't he have been more rebellious? Why didn't he resist harder, refuse more forcefully? Forget it, forget it. Prince Eric never wanted others to dictate his marriage. Even if I told him to marry the Little Mermaid princess now, he would probably refuse. I do have another son, Henry, but he's traveling abroad right now. Who knows when he'll return? Realizing he had no chance to marry his son to the mermaid princess, the king began mentally going through all the important royal and noble families, evaluating all the age-appropriate sons to see if any of them would be suitable to marry the Little Mermaid princess. Nubedes. By the way, Your Majesty the Sea King, what is your youngest daughter's name? The king finally asked the most critical question. Ariel, the Sea King answered. Her name is Ariel. At that moment, he sighed emotionally. Even though she has taken human form, Ariel has retained the beautiful voice of a mermaid. Not even in the Sea Kingdom could you find a voice more enchanting than hers. If you have ever heard her sing, you would never forget it. Inside the transparent belly of the giant fish, the king felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His legs went weak, and he collapsed onto the floor. Suddenly, it all made sense. Why he had felt an inexplicable familiarity when looking at the Sea Kingdom's breathtaking beauty. This was exactly the scenery described by the magician of the Rose Kingdom, the homeland of Ariel. So that's it. The Ariel whom Prince Eric loves so deeply is the Little Mermaid princess. This is destiny at work. Countless chaotic thoughts flashed through his mind, but the one that dominated was a powerful, gut-wrenching regret. What kind of father am I? What kind of ruler am I? Why did I refuse Prince Eric and Ariel's marriage? I should have agreed. Eric would be happy, and I could have secured an alliance with the Sea Kingdom. It's over. It's all over. Eric is already set to marry the Enderland princess. There's no changing it now. Why can't time turn back? What have I done? Afterward, the king and his attendants returned to the Western Asia kingdom aboard the giant fish and sea beasts. Seated on his familiar throne, the king remained dejected. He even asked his subordinates if there truly existed a legendary remedy for regret. Gone was the once spirited and dignified ruler. He was now completely consumed by endless remorse, wishing he could travel back in time just to give his past self a good beating. Suddenly, a guard reported, Your Majesty, Prince Eric has returned. What? Eric is back already. The king was both shocked and suspicious, quickly gathering his men to greet the returning prince. On the carriage ride back to the palace, Prince Eric remained restless. He had sent fast-riding soldiers ahead to report on everything he had experienced, the conspiracy of Enderland, along with two crucial pieces of evidence. The mind-corrupting magical incense Rhine had found on the Enderland princess and Prince Eric's own first-hand testimony about his memory loss. This proved that the supposed political marriage between the two nations was shrouded in dark schemes. If this plot had succeeded, Eric, the future king, would have lost his free will to the incense, becoming a puppet for the old witch. The entire Western Asia kingdom would have fallen into the hands of outsiders. Whether the Emperor of Enderland and his court had been involved in this scheme or not, it was now a thorn lodge between both kingdoms, and the so-called alliance plans had to be put on hold. However, the most crucial matter, Ariel's true identity, was something Prince Eric intended to tell his father in person. Will His Majesty truly approve of my marriage to Ariel once he knows her real identity? Eric was deeply anxious. In his mind, his father had always been stubborn and conservative. Would he really allow him to marry a non-human, a so-called monster, in the eyes of many? Don't worry, my dear Eric. Ryan already said, it'll be fine. Ariel reassured him. Eric could only put his worries aside for now, clasping his hands together in silent prayer. Inside the luxurious palace, the prince met the ruler. Father, just as I said before, I barely escaped from a massive conspiracy. Thanks to Sage Ryan of the Rose Kingdom and his companion Aurora. They're the heroes who saved our kingdom. By the way, since it's impossible for me to marry the princess of Enderland now, can I marry Ariel instead? The king was so overjoyed he almost fainted, his heart nearly leaping out of his chest. Prince Eric lowered his head, rapidly thinking of ways to counter his father's objections. When will you hold the wedding? The king asked eagerly. Prince Eric froze, his face like a carved statue. His father's words were completely unexpected, leaving him momentarily speechless. Oh, right, father, there's something I haven't told you yet. Ariel never actually lost her memory. She was just hiding her past. As Prince Eric spoke, his voice became increasingly hesitant. Because Ariel, she's not human. She's the mermaid princess from the deep sea kingdom. She only grew legs after drinking a magic potion. Summoning all his courage, Eric blurted out the cruel truth in one breath. His palms were drenched in sweat as he waited anxiously for his father's response. So, when is your wedding? The king asked excitedly once again. Prince Eric was stunned a second time. Hurry and decide on a date for your wedding with Ariel. The sooner, the better, the king declared enthusiastically. It will be a grand ceremony, a symbol of friendship between the Western Asia Kingdom and the Sea Kingdom, a sign of reconciliation between humans and mermaids. Both the merfolk of the sea and the humans on land will bless you, my child. Teacher, have you heard? Tomorrow is the day of Prince Eric and Princess Ariel's wedding. Their wedding will take place on a ship. Many humans from the Western Asia Kingdom and merfolk from the Sea Kingdom will attend. There's never been such a unique wedding in history. While practicing her swordplay under the sunlight, Aurora spoke to Ryan. Yes, Ryan nodded. He could feel the immense convergence of wish energy from all directions, taking shape. It included the wishes of the Western Asia Kingdom's king, the Sea King, the 5 mermaid princesses, the mermaid grand matron, and countless ordinary merfolk. Based on Ryan's estimation, even the sea hag's wish would soon join the mix. All these wishes, woven together by fate, merged into one. There was no doubt. The reward this time would be on an entirely different level from before. It would be unimaginably powerful. Realizing he was about to experience the greatest growth in his life, Ryan glanced at Aurora, who was still practicing her swordsmanship. Your swordsmanship has improved. Compared to before, Aurora's attacks, while still nimble, now carried an occasional forceful, sweeping momentum, powerful and overwhelming. After battling that super warrior from Enderland, I feel like I immediately grasped his combat techniques and combined them with my own, Aurora recalled, smiling in satisfaction. I become stronger. Ryan couldn't help but be amazed. This girl's growth speed was simply terrifying. As long as she fought against powerful enemies, she could copy their combat talents and techniques. Eventually, she would undoubtedly become a world-shaking hero. Aurora looked down at the sword in her hand. This sword, crafted by the best artisans of the Rose Kingdom at her parents' request, had already developed several nicks and cracks from the intense battles. Sigh, looks like ordinary weapons can't withstand my combat intensity anymore, Aurora sighed. I'll help you find a better weapon when the chance arises, Ryan said. For a warrior destined to slay dragons, a suitable weapon is essential. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The beautiful flower ship sailed to the center of the ocean. Below them lay the Sea King's palace. The wedding was held on a ship because it represented the meeting point of the human and mermaid worlds, symbolizing the harmony between the two nations. ANGB. The sea was calm, the sun unusually gentle, the ocean breeze soft, and the waves sang in harmony. The Little Mermaid, Ariel, finally donned the wedding dress of her dreams. In the presence of the priest, with joyful melodies in the air, she held Prince Eric's hand and vowed eternal love. From beneath the waves, the silver-crowned mermaid grand matron surfaced, while Ariel's 5 sisters, hand in hand, sang upon the sea. At the heart of the ocean, the Sea King, holding his golden trident, bore witness to this beautiful moment. The prophecy had come true. Prince Eric had married a princess from a neighboring kingdom. 1,000 merfolk from the Sea Kingdom and more than a dozen human ships from the Western Asia Kingdom encircled the flower ship where the wedding was taking place. As the bride and groom made their vows, all the merfolk began to sing in unison. Their beautiful song, carried by the ocean breeze, drifted far, far away. In the distance, a small, elegant ship floated on the sea. The little princess of Enderland gazed toward the wedding ship from afar. At such a distance, the bride and groom on the deck were nothing more than 2 tiny dots. "Your Highness, would you like to get closer?" The attendant behind her looked at the teary-eyed princess with some helplessness. The princess said nothing. She simply listened to the enchanting song carried by the sea breeze, immersed in the joyful melody, witnessing this sacred moment. She crossed her arms over her chest, silently offering her blessings to the newlyweds. Turning to her attendant, the princess said, "This is enough. We should head back. A place so sacred and beautiful. My presence would only ruin it." The small ship turned, sailing toward Enderland. Riding the sea breeze, it drifted farther and farther away, until the beautiful song could no longer be heard. After the wedding of the mermaid princess and the human prince, the Sea King once again summoned Rhine and Aurora to his palace. The 2 human children were still inside the giant fish with its transparent belly. "Honorable magician, the Sea Kingdom and the Human Kingdom have now formed an alliance. Trade will flourish between our nations, benefiting both sides. And that Human King is working hard to help the people of the land understand and overcome their past prejudices against merfolk. I thank you both for helping my daughter and for helping all of us merfolk. From now on, if either of you ever needs anything, the citizens of the Sea Kingdom will do everything in their power to assist you. In addition, I am willing to offer a reward." "A reward?" Rhine thought for a moment before asking. "My companion, Aurora, is a formidable warrior. Ordinary weapons cannot withstand the intensity of her battles. Is there a suitable weapon for her in the Sea Kingdom?" At that moment, Rhine suddenly recalled an odd story about a monkey searching for a weapon in the sea. The Sea King summoned his ministers, and after some discussion, they admitted they were powerless in this regard. Even the Sea King's trident was more of a symbol of authority than a true weapon of great power. "Great magician, I truly apologize, but please choose another reward." Rhine nodded slightly, a hint of disappointment in his expression. "In that case, I'll take some treasures from the sea." After receiving the Sea King's permission, Rhine casually gathered 1,000 large pearls from the Sea Kingdom. Then, he collected numerous beautiful coral ornaments, crafts made from mother-of-pearl and seashells, and other rare and exquisite items that could only be found in the ocean. "As a magician, I have already left my mark on these items," Rhine explained. "Whenever I need them, I can summon them at will." Because Rhine's request seemed too simple and inexpensive, the Sea King insisted that he take more, but Rhine felt it was unnecessary. He thought, these treasures may be common in the Sea Kingdom, but on land, their value increases 100-fold. Any one of these large pearls alone is worth a fortune. "Beta, from now on, I'll be traveling with wealth equivalent to that of an entire kingdom." In the Western continent, most kingdoms were small, and Rhine was certain that with his newfound oceanic fortune, he could buy out a significant portion of the continent. Back in the palace, the Sea King let out a sigh. "Now, there's only one issue left to address. The magic potions you crafted can turn humans into merfolk and merfolk into humans. This will be essential for long-term communication between land and sea. Relatively speaking, it is safer for humans to grow a fishtail and enter the sea than for merfolk to gain legs and walk on land, as they don't have to bear that terrible curse. However, you are the only one who can create these miraculous potions. While I am willing to offer additional compensation for them, I've heard that you plan to travel far away. You won't be able to stay here permanently. So, what should we do once you leave? Ryan smiled. That won't be a problem. I can recommend another master of potions to your majesty. I will provide her with both potion recipes. When I leave, if someone wishes to visit the sea or if a human wants to live in the ocean, they can rely on her. The Sea King was momentarily stunned. You mean? Ryan grinned. Of course, I'm referring to the sea hag who lives in the coral forest. Through raging whirlpools and steaming, desolate seabeds, Rhine, the Sea King, and a group of merfolk soldiers arrived at the bone shack, where the sea hag resided. Who is it? Who's come looking for me now? Thinking she had a new customer, the sea hag pushed open the door, only to see the Sea King, holding his trident, and an entire battalion of fully armed merfolk soldiers. She was instantly terrified. Why, Your Majesty? The sea hag trembled. She knew her reputation wasn't great, but she never expected the Sea King to come for her with such a grand display of force. Could it be that the Sea King found out I wanted to cut out Ariel's tongue and came here to punish me? The sea hag panicked. Her magic was nowhere near strong enough to take on the entire Sea Kingdom. Hello there, Sea Witch. I'm back to fulfill your wish, Ryan's voice rang out. Only then did the sea hag notice the giant fish with the transparent belly and the familiar young magician inside. My wish. The sea hag was dumbfounded. Didn't you once say you wanted the recognition of the Sea King and the entire Sea Kingdom? Ryan said, Now, the opportunity is right in front of you. As the sea hag stared in shock, the merfolk all bowed to her in unison. The Sea King, displaying the benevolence of a ruler, extended his hand toward the hideous which had once haunted the nightmares of merfolk children. Please become my court alchemist, honorable Sea Witch. We need you. As the ruler of the Sea Kingdom, I am formally hiring you, granting you the status of a guest of the Deep Sea Palace. From this day forth, your name will be honored throughout these waters. The sea hag felt as if she were dreaming. No, this was a scene so impossible that she wouldn't have dared to dream it, yet it was happening right before her eyes. Thank you, she murmured. Though she didn't fully understand the situation, she knew it was all thanks to Rhine. The old witch nodded fervently at the young human magician, her eyes brimming with gratitude. I have already received my reward. As per our agreement, you should now provide me with information on the Coven of Witches, Rhine said with a smile. Oh, and one more thing, a little reminder. It seems the Coven is considering expelling you. After all, you know too many of their secrets. Of course, if they decide to eliminate you quietly, it might be easy for them. But once you enter the Sea King's palace and prepare yourself in advance, taking your life won't be so simple anymore. The sheer weight of this information left the sea hag momentarily speechless. She turned to Rhine, her movements stiff, and nodded. Thank you for your warning, great human magician. I will be sure to take precautions. After handing over the potion recipes to the Sea Witch and obtaining a memory bubble containing intelligence on the Coven of Witches, Rhine also asked the Sea King to help locate magical creatures with regenerative abilities. Among the many ingredients needed to brew the potions, magical blood was the most crucial. However, the sea hag's own blood was insufficient. Thanks to the merfolk's deep knowledge of the ocean and their skill in divination, it didn't take long before they discovered a magical whale. This whale, blessed with an extraordinary ability, could heal all its wounds every morning, making it the perfect source of magical blood. After joining the Sea King's court, the sea hag became deeply passionate about her new role. It likely wouldn't take long, perhaps just 6 months, before she was no longer the terrifying figure parents used to frighten their children with. Inside the Sea King's palace, in a laboratory specially designated for the sea hag, she turned to Rhine and said, Thank you, Rhine. The sea witch carefully crushed the medicine in her jar, then lifted her head to gaze through the amber-colored window. Outside, a group of merfolk children were playing. They passed around a ball woven from seaweed, chatting as they told all sorts of wild stories. Have you heard? There's an old and ugly witch living in a little house made of bones deep in the coral forest. She loves to eat Little Mermaid children like us, one child exclaimed. To his surprise, the other merfolk children immediately refuted him. What are you talking about? That's just a made-up story. That witch is the royal alchemist of His Majesty the Sea King. How could she be a bad person? Inside the palace of the Western Asia Kingdom, Ryan compiled the intelligence he had gathered, listing all the known information about the Coven of Witches. Teacher, teacher, Aurora ran excitedly into the room. The sea witch said that simply providing you with some information isn't nearly enough to express her gratitude. Not only did you fulfill her wish, but you also warned her of the dangers ahead. So, she asked Ariel to send us another gift. Aurora placed 2 shimmering, gem-like plant roots onto the table. The sea witch said these come from a rare and precious plant found only in the sea. She's been holding on to them for years, reluctant to use them herself. Anyone who eats them will become immune to all poisons, and many dark curses and hexes will also have reduced effects on them. Immunity to poison and resistance to curses? That does sound useful, Ryan remarked. Your blessing lacks that kind of protection. Previously, when fighting the old witch in her transformed viper form, Aurora had been wounded on her right hand by its venom, despite her otherwise impenetrable defenses. After a quick check to ensure the roots weren't harmful, Ryan and Aurora each ate one. The moment Ryan swallowed it, a warm current surged through his body. Aside from that, there were no obvious external changes. By the way, people have been saying that after getting married, Prince Eric isn't the same as before, Aurora added. In what way? Ryan asked. Both the king and others have noticed that Prince Eric seems to have matured. He's making an effort to learn things he never cared about before, striving to become a worthy king in the future, Aurora reported. As expected, Ryan gazed at the vast blue sky outside the window. Prince Eric, the future ruler of the Western Asia Kingdom, is now the symbol of friendship between humans and merfolk. I imagine he wants to become a great and respected king, spending his life reshaping humanity's understanding of merfolk and erasing old prejudices. He might not like the idea of being a king, but there are some things that neither mighty warriors nor brilliant magicians can accomplish. Only a king can. Although he was talking about Prince Eric, Aurora nodded thoughtfully. Prince Eric once said he hated politics the most. Who would have thought that after setting a new goal for himself, he'd end up becoming exactly the kind of person he used to despise? Aurora teased with a smile. You've developed more of a sense of humor, Ryan shrugged, then added, his words carrying a double meaning. It goes to show, after certain experiences, people do change. At that moment, Ryan suddenly froze. He felt it, an unprecedented, overwhelming surge of wish energy, finally converging and rushing toward him like a tidal wave. Countless ethereal voices echoed in Ryan's ears. I want to earn the recognition of His Majesty the Sea King and the people of the Sea Kingdom, to no longer be seen as an ugly and terrifying monster. I want to enter human society, to love and marry Prince Eric, to obtain an immortal soul. I hope that every mermaid who falls in love with a human will no longer have to endure the hardships I have. I want to be with Ariel. I hope the Sea Kingdom and the Human Kingdom can coexist peacefully from now on. I hope my sister/granddaughter remains safe. I hope the ships of the Western Asia Kingdom can always sail the seas safely. I hope the kingdom gradually prospers so that everyone can live a good life. I hope today's catch is abundant so my family won't go hungry. I hope this voyage is safe and free from storms. I hope that an ordinary mermaid like me can also have a chance, like Princess Ariel, to obtain an immortal soul. These voices intertwined, layering over each other, constantly reverberating in Ryan's ears. After the alliance between the Sea Kingdom and the Western Asia Kingdom was established, these wishes finally converged, forming something new. Ryan extended his right hand, making a grasping motion. Countless azure light particles gathered in his palm, taking the shape of a scepter. At first, it was illusory, but in the next moment, it solidified into reality. The scepter of the sea. It was the manifestation of numerous wishes related to the sea and the sea kingdom. The moment Ryan gripped the scepter, he could feel the immense magical power surging within. It far surpassed anything he had wielded before. I see multiple interconnected wishes can be pooled together in exchange for a grand reward. This is way better than getting a bunch of mediocre tools or spells. Deep in thought, Ryan's figure swiftly faded into the void and vanished. The young man's silhouette reappeared above the ocean. He hovered in midair, held aloft by the fierce winds summoned by the scepter, preventing him from falling. The sky suddenly darkened. In mere seconds, black clouds spread across the once clear sky. Silver lightning crackled within the stormy clouds. Fierce winds howled. Towering black waves, as high as mountains, crashed down with a deafening roar. Ryan pointed the scepter at the sea once more. A colossal vortex, spanning several kilometers in diameter, took shape on the ocean's surface. Any ship caught in this vicinity would have been swallowed whole. With the ability to command the sea itself, I could summon a tsunami large enough to drown a small island nation. At sea, I can summon terrifying storms, wield tempests and lightning. Destruction powerful enough to obliterate an entire aircraft carrier fleet from my past life. This is insane. Ryan waved the scepter again. The fierce winds calmed. The towering waves stilled. The dark clouds dissipated. In the past, he had no concept of the immense power of black, which maleficent, the kind that could influence an entire nation. But now he finally understood. This works on land too, but the effect isn't as overwhelming. I can only control limited bodies of water. With that thought, Ryan's form blurred and disappeared once again. 3 days after Prince Eric and Princess Ariel's wedding, the palace of the Western Asia Kingdom was once again bustling with activity. Eric, your brother, Prince Henry, has returned home. The king spoke excitedly to Eric, who was by the window, affectionately holding Ariel. Henry's finally back, huh? You probably won't stay long before running off again. Eric turned his head and sighed. Eric, what kind of person is your brother? I think you've mentioned him before. Ariel asked. Back when Eric first proposed eloping, he had clearly stated that he had a younger brother traveling abroad who could inherit the throne. How should I put it? Eric looked troubled. He's always been a bit unreliable, but then again, I don't really have the right to judge him. Thinking back to how he had almost run away with Ariel not long ago, Eric, who had now resolved to study seriously and become a proper king, felt he wasn't in a position to criticize his brother. Eric, father, I finally get to see you both again. An excited voice rang out from outside the room. Brother, I just got back, and I heard you got married. Let me see your bride. A young man, who bore a striking resemblance to Eric, strode in with no sense of royal decorum whatsoever. The moment he laid eyes on Ariel, the beautiful bride in Eric's arms, Henry's eyes sparkled. Wow, brother, this is your wife? She's absolutely stunning. He spent an absurd amount of time praising Ariel's beauty, so much so that both Eric and Ariel began feeling awkward before he finally stopped. Then, Henry's expression suddenly turned sorrowful as he looked toward the king. Father, look, my brother is married, yet I don't even have a fiancé. Henry, don't think I don't know your ways. During your travels, I'm sure you've flirted with plenty of women, the king yawned. You can't say it like that, father. What I need is an official fiancé. Henry protested, looking aggrieved. With newfound excitement, he declared, This time, I'm serious. It's not just for fun. I think it's necessary to hold a nationwide search for a beautiful wife. All right. What do you have in mind, Henry? The king waved a hand dismissively, too familiar with Henry's antics to argue. Henry lowered his head, pondered for a moment, and proposed his idea. How about a great plan? We can host a grand ball in the palace, subtly hinting that it's actually a matchmaking event for Prince Henry. Wealthy, noble, and attractive young women from across the kingdom will be invited to attend. I'll then choose the most beautiful, noble, an elegant lady to be my fiancée. Huh, who knows? Maybe some deep-sea mermaid, secretly in love with me, will transform into a human just to attend. Then I'll have a mermaid fiancé, just like my dear brother." The king and Prince Eric exchanged glances and sighed in unison. "You're sure you're looking for a real fiancé this time, and not just playing around? Fine, do as you like." Having long understood Henry's personality, the king saw no harm in indulging him and agreed without further argument. "Great!" praised Father. Henry cheered, leaping with excitement. Meanwhile, in another room of the palace, Rhine, who was going over witch coven intelligence with Aurora, overheard the entire conversation. "Whoa, looks like Prince Eric's brother, Henry, really is a bit of a loose cannon," Aurora remarked. "No wonder the kingdom previously designated the rebellious and clearly reluctant Eric as the crown prince," Rhine chuckled. "Turns out his younger brother is an even bigger wild card. But speaking of which, a prince hosting a grand ball to find a wife. Why does this story sound so familiar?" Rhine couldn't help but let his thoughts drift. "This feels a lot like Cinderella, doesn't it?" Rhine paid no attention to Prince Henry's little ball planning stunt. Instead, he stayed in the room with Aurora, continuing to organize the intelligence provided by the Sea Hag, carefully listing out the key points on paper. According to the Sea Hag's first-hand impression, even within the Witch Coven, Black Witch Maleficent's mastery of black magic is undoubtedly among the best. Aurora exhaled in relief. Or maybe she's just more flamboyant. "That Black Witch has always had a flashy personality," Rhine said. "Either way, it's best to be cautious." The two of them listed out the details of each Witch Coven member on paper. The Witch Coven consists of 7 members in total. Besides the confirmed identities of the Sea Hag and Black Witch Maleficent, the other 5 members have all hidden their real identities. They only use aliases when referring to each other. The first unknown witch, known by the alias Slave Master. She seems to possess a magical artifact that allows her to move freely across the continent and frequently appears in different places. Whenever the Witch Coven needs to meet in person, she is the one who travels around, summoning the others. The second unknown, which is referred to as the Middle Eastern Witch. All that's known is that she resides in the Middle Eastern nations and wields magic powerful enough to envelop an entire country. In the Witch Coven's regular black magic exchanges, she has shared many formidable spells. Wow, a group of witches openly exchanging and perfecting black magic. This organization is basically a villain breeding ground. Who knows what kind of horror they're going to spawn? The third unknown, which goes by the Queen. As the name suggests, she appears to be the queen of some country. Through some form of magic, the queen has made her king utterly obsessed with her, obeying her every command. In doing so, she has effectively taken control of the kingdom, barely meeting the Witch Coven's membership criteria. The fourth unknown witch, called Redheart, is known for being completely insane and extreme. No one knows where she lives, and she almost never meets with others in person. The Sea Hag has never spoken to her directly, so there's little useful information on her. The fifth unknown, which has no known alias or information at all. In the Sea Hag's memory, she has barely ever spoken. However, whenever the other members mention her, they show immense respect and acknowledge her as the founder and leader of the Witch Coven. These 5 witches, along with the Sea Hag and Black Witch Maleficent, form the entirety of the Witch Coven. Aurora looked at the compiled information, feeling overwhelmed. This isn't enough at all. These scattered bits of intelligence aren't nearly sufficient to deduce their true identities. Ryan examined the notes, finding some parts strangely familiar, but unable to confirm anything for sure, except for her. His gaze fell on the entry under the witch labeled the Queen. Like the Sea Hag, the Queen is considered more of a fringe member. She doesn't seem to possess particularly powerful black magic, nor does she show much enthusiasm for witchcraft. Nigerian Ira B. The only reason she remains in the organization without being expelled is that she possesses an omniscient magic mirror. Whenever the other witches have questions, they seek her help in consulting the mirror. Because of how useful the mirror is, they keep her around. A queen with an all-knowing magic mirror? This is way too familiar. As someone from outside this world, Ryan knew this story all too well. Isn't this just Snow White's stepmother? So, in the Witch Coven, she's nothing more than a glorified answer machine. Ryan pushed aside the stack of documents and turned his attention to the information specifically about Black Witch Maleficent. She was Aurora's true enemy. Black Witch Maleficent specializes in curses and plant-based black magic. No wonder her curse caused the kingdom to become overgrown with thorns and brambles. Even if she's ambushed, she won't die. Instead, it will trigger an automatic transformation spell that turns her into a dragon. Her dragon scales are indestructible. External attacks and most magic will only slightly disturb her but won't be fatal. Unless someone wields a weapon sharp enough to pierce her dragon scales and has the strength to match, she is immortal. Black Witch Maleficent resides in a gloomy Gothic castle filled with dark monster servants. She returns to this castle using magic every month or two, but she usually stays no longer than a week before leaving again. If we prepare for battle in advance, we can ambush and kill her inside the castle. As for the castle's location, Aurora examined the world map. That's strange. The coordinates point to the deep desert, but no one lives there. Could the Sea Hag's intel be incorrect? The golden-haired girl looked puzzled as she pointed at the marked location. It was a vast desert east of the Western Asia Kingdom and Rose Kingdom, near the edge of the Western continent and close to the Middle Eastern nations. Would someone really build a castle in the middle of the desert? A desert kingdom? Ryan stared at the map's marked location, feeling an odd sense of familiarity. Then he remembered 10 years ago, the hot air balloon Oz had ridden drifted in this very direction. And in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the entire land of Oz was surrounded by deserts, which was why it remained hidden from the world. In other words, Maleficent's castle is built in Oz. Ryan came to a realization. Then, next week, we'll bid farewell to Prince Eric and Ariel, leave the Western Asia Kingdom, and travel to this so-called uninhabited desert marked on the map. With that, Ryan and Aurora set their next destination. If that really is the land of Oz, I might as well visit the Emerald City and see Oz himself. It's been 10 years since he left his home country. Seeing me again, the Grand Magician of the Rose Kingdom, will definitely excite him. The thought of such an interesting reunion made Ryan smirk slightly. Just then, a gentle knock sounded at the door. Ryan snapped his fingers, and the door handle turned on its own. Standing outside was none other than Ariel, now the newlywed princess. "Is there something you need, Ariel?" Ariel hesitated slightly before speaking. "Magician Ryan, I heard you're planning to leave the Western Asia Kingdom next week. I wish you a safe journey. Also, though I feel a bit embarrassed asking this, could I trouble you for a small favor before you go? It's fine if you don't want to. The debts that the Sea Kingdom and I owe you are already beyond repaying." "It's fine. Just say it," Ryan replied. "Well, as you know, over the past while, I married Prince Eric, and the alliance between the Western Asia Kingdom and the Sea Kingdom is being finalized. The negotiations and agreements are all being handled, but I don't know much about that side of things." Ryan nodded, signaling for her to continue. Currently, knowledge and understanding of mermaids among the Western Asia Kingdom's people were still limited to the royal family and a few nobles. However, the king was already working on increasing awareness nationwide, aiming to eliminate public prejudice against mermaids within 6 months. In many parts of the kingdom, thanks to the king's efforts, merchant ships, fishermen, and mermaids had already started cooperating. Full reconciliation between humans and mermaids was only a matter of time. There didn't seem to be any major issues. Ariel continued, "My father told me that many mermaids in the Sea Kingdom were shocked when they heard about our alliance with the humans. Under my father's directive, the secret of the immortal soul is gradually being made public in the Sea Kingdom. Most of our citizens are overjoyed after learning about the alliance, knowing that human sailors will no longer attack mermaids, that our kingdom will gain access to human craftsmanship, and that they themselves might have a chance to obtain an immortal soul. Of course, there is still a small portion of the population who completely disagree. They believe that my love story with Prince Eric is nothing more than an extreme, one-of-a-kind case, impossible to replicate. They're convinced that most humans and merfolk can never truly be together. They oppose an alliance with humans and refuse to believe that they could ever follow my example, earning an immortal soul through this cross-species friendship between two kingdoms. Ryan wasn't surprised in the slightest. Every policy will have its opposition. So what does His Majesty the Sea King plan to do about it? Ariel relayed her father's thoughts. My father believes that one love story between a human and a mermaid might not be enough. If more merfolk and humans successfully fell in love and married, then our alliance would undoubtedly gain more support from the Sea Kingdom citizens. As it happens, I recently learned from my sisters that a childhood friend of mine has been in love with a human girl for years. His name is Momo. He's a merman, but unlike me, he holds no noble status. He's just a commoner. After hearing about my story, he was deeply inspired and now hopes to be with the human girl he loves. As Ariel spoke, her expression shifted noticeably, showing genuine concern for this childhood friend. It was clear that she truly wished for him to find love with a human, just as she had. Well, it makes sense, Ryan thought. After all, the Western Asia Kingdom is just a foreign land to Ariel. The Sea Kingdom is her true home, the place that carries her memories. That's true. A prince and princess's love story will always feel like something out of a fairy tale for most people. Ryan spoke thoughtfully. But if a common merman and a human commoner can come together, just like the prince and princess in the story, it would be incredibly inspiring. The young magician rose from his chair. Take me to meet your merfolk friend. At the same time, a shocking piece of news was spreading throughout the Western Asia Kingdom. Have you heard? Prince Eric's younger brother, the handsome Prince Henry, has returned to the kingdom. He's throwing a grand ball. Apparently, the girl who impresses the most at the ball might even be chosen as the prince's fiancée. Oh my God, I wish I could attend this ball. Seaside of the Western Asia Kingdom. On the beach, a young merman surfaced from the water. We saw Ariel, Rhine, and Aurora. He nervously bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. Greetings, great magician. Well, wasn't he a polite and well-mannered little merman? I heard you've fallen in love with a human girl. How did that happen? And where is she now? Ryan asked for details. The young merman shook his head. I can't go ashore, so I've never actually seen her. I only know her name, Cinderella. Cinderella? Ryan raised an eyebrow at the familiar name, recalling that Prince Henry was hosting a ball. So, the one you fell in love with is Cinderella? A mermaid falling for Cinderella. Yeah, that definitely seemed like something that could happen on this continent. Aurora was taken aback. You've never even seen her? Then how do you know her name? Just look at those birds. The young merman pointed toward the sky. Following his gaze, they saw a flock of birds flying toward them. The birds chirped noisily as they landed on a tree near the shore. Then, astonishingly, they began to sing in human language. Friend of the sea, let me tell you today's tale of Cinderella. Cinderella is heartbroken because she longs to attend the prince's ball, but her stepsisters and mother refuse to let her go. They torment her, oppress her, forcing her to do the dirtiest, most exhausting chores. And they won't allow her to attend Prince Henry's ball. She has no fine dress, no elegant shoes. They say, if she goes to the ball, she'll only make a fool of herself. Now, tell me, friend of the sea, do you have any message for Cinderella today? Aurora was stunned. Wait, did those birds just talk? No, they sang in human language? Exactly. They're magical birds, the young merman explained. I communicate with Cinderella through them. They act like, well, in the human world, I think you call it letters. We've been exchanging messages for years through these birds. But she has no idea that her distant friend is actually a merman who can never set foot on land. Are in Thailand bot. Ariel and Aurora were both astonished by the birds singing. Rhine, however, wasn't particularly surprised. Instead, he fell into thought. Birds? The Brothers Grimm version. The Cinderella story had multiple versions. They all followed the same core narrative, an oppressed girl mistreated by her stepmother and sisters, who, with the help of an external force, was able to attend the prince's ball. The most well-known version was Charles Perrault's, in which Cinderella's fairy godmother used magic to give her a pumpkin carriage and a beautiful gown. But in the Brothers Grimm version, Cinderella didn't have a fairy godmother. Instead, a flock of magical birds helped her. In some versions, those birds even pecked out the stepsister's eyes at the end. So, in this world, the story of Cinderella seems to be a mix of different versions. That means Cinderella retained the magical ability to command a flock of intelligent birds. I wonder if the fairy godmother still exists. Ryan mused. The young merman lowered his head, clearly troubled by Cinderella's situation. Oh no, Cinderella has it so rough. Ever since her father died, her stepmother and stepsisters have been oppressing her. I really want to help her, but I can't leave the sea. He turned to Ariel and Rhine, pleading, "Can you help Cinderella? She just wants to go to Prince Henry's ball." Is that really such an impossible wish? Hoping his crush could attend the prince's ball, Rhine scoffed internally. Buddy, do you hear yourself? You sound like the ultimate backup plan. All right, I'll help this Cinderella girl, Rhine agreed. It wasn't that difficult a request. The young magician tossed some food to the singing birds. Lead us to Cinderella's home, would you? Soon, the three followed the birds to a courtyard, where they saw Cinderella working outside. Rhine recognized her immediately, covered in ash, dirty and ragged, toiling under the scorching sun as she swept the weeds from the yard. Meanwhile, her two stepsisters lounged comfortably in the shade. They were undeniably beautiful, but their expressions were sharp and mean-spirited. "Cinderella, what are you thinking?" one sister sneered. "Do you actually believe that if you finish all the chores Mother assigned, she'll let you attend the prince's ball?" "Exactly. You don't even have a decent dress. You don't even have a pair of proper shoes. If you show up at the ball looking like that, you'll just embarrass yourself. Yeah, the moment Prince Henry sees you, he'll have the servants throw you out." Cinderella's face fell. Deep down, she knew they were right. This Cinderella girl really is pitiful, Ariel sighed. How should we help her? Getting her a proper ball gown should be enough. That's easy, Aurora suggested. Rhine, watching the sisters mock Cinderella, suddenly had an idea. A mischievous smile curled his lips as he imagined what was about to unfold. "Ariel, I got a plan. Let's teleport back to the palace and find Prince Eric." Before the girls could respond, their figures rapidly faded into nothing. Meanwhile, in a small grove near the courtyard, someone else had been watching Cinderella's misery. A barely audible sigh escaped from the trees. Hiding in the shadows was a girl dressed in an elegant gown, disguised as a fairy. Using magic to stay invisible, she was undetectable to ordinary people. "Cinderella is so pitiful," she whispered. "She doesn't even have a proper dress to wear. But now, it's my turn to work some magic." This fairy-clad girl was none other than the fairy godmother. "Once it gets dark, I'll sneak into Cinderella's house and use my magic to conjure the most beautiful gown and a grand carriage. That way, she can attend Prince Henry's ball. I can't wait to see the joy on Cinderella's face when she sees her dress." The fairy godmother, Layla, lost herself in a daydream about Cinderella's happiness. Then, a crisp young voice suddenly spoke behind her. "Oh, so you're the fairy godmother here to help Cinderella?" "That's right, I am." Layla abruptly froze. "Wait, what? Who are you? How can you see me? When did you get behind me?" Startled, she whirled around to see a silver-haired boy standing there. So, in this world, both the magical birds and the fairy godmother existed at the same time. Rhine raised a hand in greeting. "Well, Cinderella might not need your help anymore." "Not need my help? What do you mean?" Layla was baffled and wary of the unexpected intruder. Just then, the sound of galloping hooves filled the air. A grand carriage pulled up in front of Cinderella's house. "Wow, it's Prince Eric. His Highness actually came to our town." Excited voices erupted from the streets. "Wait, that's the Crown Prince of the Western Asia Kingdom. What's he doing here?" Layla was confused. Rhine smirked behind her. "Like you, I'm also here to prepare a gown for Cinderella to attend the ball. You'll see soon enough." Layla blinked, even more bewildered. Just what was going on here? And what did Prince Eric's arrival have to do with this? Prince Eric and his new bride, Ariel, stepped down from the carriage. The distinguished crown prince and his newlywed wife greeted the nearby onlookers with warmth, showing not the slightest air of superiority. Then, the two of them headed toward Cinderella's house. At that moment, Cinderella had already gone back inside to continue her chores, while her stepsisters remained under the shade, chatting. When they saw the handsome prince and his stunning wife approaching, they were momentarily stunned before panic set in. Oh my God, isn't that Prince Eric of the Western Asia Kingdom and his newlywed wife? They just had a grand wedding a few days ago. The whole kingdom knows about it. They're the future king and queen of the Western Asia Kingdom. Why on earth would such important figures suddenly visit our home? The two sisters scrambled back inside to inform their mother. Mother, the prince is here. Cinderella's stepmother thought they were joking. What nonsense are you two spouting? The ball isn't until tonight. Why would Prince Henry come looking for us? As a well-off family in town, they had received an invitation to Prince Henry's ball, but it was just one of many that had been mass distributed. It's not Prince Henry. It's his elder brother, Crown Prince Eric. The two sisters frantically gestured toward the window. Prince Eric, when the stepmother looked outside, she was immediately taken aback. Sure enough, there was a luxurious carriage, and Prince Eric and Ariel were walking toward their courtyard. She was so startled that she hastily changed in her finest clothes, rushing so much that she ended up putting her shoes on the wrong feet. Then, she hurried out the door to greet them. Oh, Your Highness, what honor! What brings you and your beautiful wife here? She knew full well that this man was the future ruler of the Western Asia Kingdom, far more powerful than his younger brother, Prince Henry, who was merely hosting the upcoming ball. Everyone in the kingdom wanted to get on Eric's good side. For such an important figure to visit in person, what could be the reason? Prince Eric smiled. I'm here to find a beautiful and kind-hearted girl and personally invite her to my brother Henry's ball. Cinderella's stepmother was stunned, but quickly nodded. Oh, I do have two beautiful daughters. I wonder which one you're looking for. I'll have them come out right away. The two stepsisters wasted no time dressing in their finest gowns, preparing to step outside. Before leaving the house, they were already arguing over which of them the prince had come for. Sure, I'm gorgeous, but am I really beautiful enough for Prince Eric to come all this way just to invite me? The older sister mused. Sis, stop being so full of yourself. Of course, he's here for me, the younger sister retorted. Oh, for heaven's sake, my foolish daughters. Stop daydreaming. Their mother couldn't take it anymore and voiced her own speculation. I think Prince Eric must have a wrong house. Why would someone so important personally invite you too? Once he sees you're not the girl he's looking for, this will all be cleared up? Excellent. Inside, Cinderella had been sweeping the floor. Seeing the commotion from her stepmother and sisters, she realized the prince had arrived. Just as she was about to say something, her stepmother snapped at her. Cinderella, stay in the house and don't you dare come out. We can't let the prince see you in your filthy state. With that, the stepmother and her daughters rushed outside, leaving Cinderella standing there, feeling even more wronged and heartbroken. The moment Eric saw the two stepsisters, he spoke plainly. No, the girl I wish to invite is not one of them. Then, he pulled out an exquisitely crafted invitation, one that was vastly different from the mass-produced ones. The golden-etched lettering shimmered brilliantly. The girl I'm looking for is named Cinderella. She lives here, doesn't she? The stepmother and her daughters were completely dumbfounded. While they stood there in stunned silence, Prince Eric and Ariel walked past them and directly into the house. Inside, they immediately saw Cinderella, dressed in soot-stained, tattered clothes. You must be Miss Cinderella, correct? Prince Eric greeted her warmly, as if he didn't even notice the dirt and ash covering her. Why, yes, that's me, Cinderella answered nervously. Wonderful. The prince looked absolutely delighted. Miss Cinderella, I came all the way from the capital just to find you. I would like to personally invite you to my brother Henry's ball. Will you accept? Cinderella trembled as she nodded, unable to believe what was happening. Am I dreaming? The crown prince of the Western Asia Kingdom personally traveled here just to invite me? The shock was so overwhelming that she stood frozen, unable to respond. Seeing Cinderella hesitate, Ariel suddenly looked anxious. "Oh no, Eric. It seems like Miss Cinderella doesn't want to go," Ariel said with a troubled expression. "That's terrible. If Miss Cinderella refuses to attend, His Majesty will surely be furious," Eric exclaimed, clearly worried. Without hesitation, the prince grasped Cinderella's arm, completely unbothered by the dirt and grime, as if she were draped in the finest silk. The crown prince of the Western Asia kingdom earnestly pleaded, "Please, Miss Cinderella, I beg you, attend my brother's ball. I assure you, it will only take one evening of your time." Ariel also chimed in, pleading with her. "Yes, if Miss Cinderella refuses to attend Prince Henry's ball, then the ball itself might as well be cancelled." Cinderella was utterly dumbfounded. She had no idea how to respond. "Wait, what is going on here?" "No, that's not it. I never said I didn't want to go. And no, that's not what I meant." Cinderella frantically waved her hands. But she wasn't the only one who was in complete shock. Her stepsisters and stepmother, who had been eavesdropping on the entire conversation, were just as bewildered. "I must be dreaming," the elder stepsister muttered blankly. "I must have eaten too much before bed." "You idiot! If you're dreaming, why would I be dreaming too?" the younger sister snapped. "Wait, so you were the one who stole my pastries last night?" "I knew it. You're the idiot. Obviously, we're both having the same dream." "You two fools," their mother hissed, dragging her two bewildered daughters outside. Once in the courtyard, she poured a bucket of cold water over each of their heads. Dripping wet, the two sisters looked at their mother in shock. "This is not a dream," their stepmother declared. "Listen to me. Your sister, Cinderella, is definitely not an ordinary girl." Inside the house, it seems that Miss Cinderella is unwilling to attend tonight's ball. Prince Eric glanced at Cinderella, who was frozen in shock, completely unresponsive. He showed an expression of deep remorse. "As expected, it must be because we only came to inform you today. That was truly too discourteous of us." With immense regret, the prince turned around, pulling his wife, Ariel, along as he left. "Oh dear, Miss Cinderella doesn't want to attend the ball. We should tell father that we might need to consider canceling it. If Miss Cinderella won't be there, is there even a point in holding the ball?" Ariel, however, complained discontentedly to the prince. "Eric, I told you. Why did you wait until today to invite Miss Cinderella? Giving her the invitation to the ball at the last minute. How rushed is that? Miss Cinderella must be very busy in her daily life. How could she possibly have time to change her plans and attend Henry's ball on such short notice?" Prince Eric showed an attitude of sincere repentance, lowering his head in self-reflection. "You're right. I was inconsiderate and failed to take into account Miss Cinderella's own schedule. Cinderella, I am busy, but that's because I have to do all the housework. This doesn't make any sense at all. Can someone please tell me what the hell is going on?" Cinderella's thoughts were in turmoil as she hurriedly called out to the prince and Ariel, who had already reached the door. "Wait, Prince Eric, Your Highness. I will attend His Highness Henry's ball tonight." Prince Eric and Ariel turned back in excitement. "Eric, did you hear that?" Miss Cinderella agreed. Ariel was overjoyed. Prince Eric, too, acted as if he had just received the greatest honor. "That's wonderful. Even Miss Cinderella will be attending the ball. My younger brother Henry will surely be incredibly honored." Overjoyed, Prince Eric and Ariel left, walking past Cinderella's two dumbfounded stepsisters and her stepmother. As they walked, they even continued their conversation. "That scared me. I really thought Miss Cinderella wasn't going to come. The ball was this close to being canceled." After the prince and Ariel left, the stepmother recalled everything that had just happened and felt her legs go weak with fear. She grabbed her two daughters and pulled them into a corner of the courtyard. "Your sister Cinderella. Her identity must be extraordinarily noble. You saw it too, didn't you?" Even the crown prince, Eric, spoke to her with such respect. "No, she must be more than just nobility. She must be a princess from some great empire." The stepmother speculated that Cinderella's noble lineage must have come from her late biological mother. By the gods! She had never known that her husband's first wife had such an extraordinary background. Two streams of hopeless tears rolled down the stepmother's cheeks. "We're doomed, my foolish daughters. We always made Cinderella do the dirtiest, hardest, and foulest chores. Whenever there was delicious food, we never spared her even a bite. And now we learn that Cinderella has such a prestigious background. If she so much as breathes a single word about how we mistreated her, we'll all be losing our heads." Arnoe, yes. The elder stepsister scratched her head. "But I don't think we need to move. We live here pretty comfortably." The younger stepsister, however, was much sharper. She immediately understood her mother's meaning and gave an "aha, I see" kind of look. "I get it now. Mother, what you're saying is..." The stepmother and the younger stepsister exchanged glances, nodding in unison. "We should just get rid of Cinderella quietly." The younger stepsister made a throat-slitting gesture. The stepmother, enraged, grabbed a bottle of water and dumped it over the younger daughter's head, clamping a hand over her mouth. "You idiot! Keep your voice down. If Cinderella doesn't show up at Prince Henry's ball tonight, we're doomed. What I meant was, we need to take this opportunity while she's still in our house to do everything we can to win her favor. We must make sure she never breathes a word about how we mistreated her. Not even the tiniest detail." The two stepsisters nodded, half understanding. It was still early in the morning, and there were a few hours left until the evening's ball. They had to make the most of this time to fix everything. The stepmother, leading her daughters, rushed into the house. The moment she saw Cinderella, who was still in shock, she put on a look of overwhelming concern. "Cinderella, how can you be dressed like this? How can you be so dirty? This is absolutely unacceptable. Let me help you wash up." She then snatched the broom out of Cinderella's hands. "This kind of work? How could you possibly do it?" Turning to her daughters, the stepmother gave out orders. "You sweep the floor, and you cook. Make sure you prepare the most delicious meal for Cinderella today." Cinderella remained frozen in place. Her stepmother's sudden 180-degree attitude shift felt like a dream. With utmost respect, the stepmother ushered Cinderella into a chair and carefully served her a cup of tea. Then, she began cautiously probing for information. "Oh, by the way, dear Cinderella, can you tell me where your late mother was from? Did she have any special background? Did she say anything to you before she passed?" As she mentioned Cinderella's late mother, the stepmother even took out a handkerchief and wiped her tears. "Oh, such a tragedy. Your mother was so young, just as beautiful as you, so gentle, graceful, and kind-hearted. Yet she passed away from illness." Cinderella felt uneasy just listening to her. This felt so off. "Normally, whenever you mention my mother, you never talk about her like this," she thought. Cinderella recalled her mother's smile before she passed away. Her mother had once told her that she would watch over her from the afterlife. But aside from that, she had never said anything unusual. Cinderella truly believed that her mother had nothing particularly special about her. "No," Cinderella shook her head. "My mother didn't have any kind of special background." "Oh no," the stepmother's mind raced. "Cinderella must hold a grudge against me. She refuses to tell me the truth. Forget it, forget it. As long as I can earn Cinderella's forgiveness, that's all that matters." Looking at Cinderella's filthy clothes, the stepmother quickly changed the subject. "Oh, my dear Cinderella, how can you possibly wear such rags? I must hurry and buy you the most beautiful gown so that you can attend Prince Henry's ball in all your radiance." The stepmother spent the entire morning and a significant amount of money purchasing the most exquisite dress from the town. While bargaining with the dressmaker, she had felt extreme pain in her heart. This single gown had nearly drained half of her savings. But as long as she could gain even the slightest bit of Cinderella's forgiveness, it was worth it. She returned home with the magnificent dress in hand. "Hurry, hurry, Cinderella, put this on. Once you wear this, you'll be even more stunning. You'll enchant Prince Henry for sure." Meanwhile, the two stepsisters, tasked with cleaning and cooking, were struggling in complete chaos due to their lack of experience. They watched as their stepmother showered Cinderella with praise. The same Cinderella who, until now, had always been bullied by them, wearing filthy rags, was now dressed in a luxurious gown of silk and chiffon. The sight left them deeply unsettled. "Oh my God, this dress is 100 times prettier than mine," the elder stepsister sighed. "This dream is getting more ridiculous by the second," the younger stepsister muttered, pinching her own cheek. Cinderella wasn't the only one baffled. Watching everything unfold from the sidelines, her fairy godmother, Layla, was just as stunned. What on earth is happening here? Fairy Layla was completely confused. "See, I told you. I make sure Cinderella had a beautiful dress for tonight's ball," Rhine said smugly, smiling with satisfaction. "So, this is what you meant? Your way of getting Cinderella a gown was making her stepmother pay for it herself." Fairy Layla was absolutely floored by the boy's peculiar logic. "Exactly," Rhine chuckled. "Isn't this much better? That stepmother bullied her for so long. It's only fair that she pays the price and makes up for it." The young magician then turned to look at Cinderella, who stood in the courtyard, wearing a sky-blue gown. But the most important thing is Cinderella didn't just get a dress to wear to the ball. She also gained something she never had before: respect. She received her stepmother's compensation. From now on, her stepmother and stepsisters will never dare to bully her again. Fairy Layla had to admit, compared to simply conjuring a beautiful dress for Cinderella, this was indeed a much better way to help her. As Layla started to question her own existence as a fairy godmother, Rhine casually changed the subject. "So, why did you decide to help Cinderella in the first place?" By this world's definition, Fairy Layla was technically a witch too. "I once disguised myself as an old woman and wandered the streets, asking for a drink of water. Only Cinderella gave me a bottle of milk. She must be a kind-hearted girl," Fairy Layla explained. "So I swore that I would help her once." Layla glanced toward the courtyard, where the stepmother was now humbly pleading with Cinderella, who was dressed in her stunning new gown, not to expose the way they had mistreated her. Layla had to admit, Rhine had a point. "But tell me, little magician, what do you plan to do next? Once the ball is over, you're not seriously going to let Cinderella come back here, are you? Hey, wait, where did you go?" At that moment, Layla realized the mysterious young magician had once again vanished without a trace. Inside the palace of the Western Asia Kingdom, Prince Eric, Ariel, you two really nailed that performance. "I had no idea you were so talented at acting," Rhine said, leaning back in his chair as he praised them. Of course, the script had been written by him, though he had to admit Prince Eric had improvised quite a bit. His emotional delivery was incredibly convincing. "I've seen plenty of similar storylines in novels and plays before," Prince Eric said. He elaborated further. "In stories like this, the protagonist usually starts off in a miserable situation, either as a poor young man or a poor young woman. But then, by sheer chance, they come across some kind of magical artifact, or they receive the aid of a powerful magician. After that, they rise to greatness. In some versions, even after the protagonist gains their newfound power, outsiders still assume they're the same as before. No one realizes they've acquired a miraculous magic item. And when people finally hear about the protagonist's incredible achievements, they're always utterly shocked. Wow, Eric has really read a lot of these kinds of stories," Rhine thought to himself with amusement. He could tell that ever since marrying Ariel, Prince Eric had become noticeably more cheerful. Helping Cinderella attend the ball is only the first step, Rhine reminded himself. He hadn't forgotten the real goal: helping that young merman win Cinderella's heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, twilight enveloped the sky. The time for the ball was drawing near. Dressed in the most exquisite gown she had ever worn, Cinderella sat inside the carriage her stepmother had rented. Her heart was filled with turbulent emotions as she arrived before the palace gates. She had no idea that Fairy Layla, hidden by magic, was secretly following her from behind. Inside the dressing room, Cinderella sat quietly, waiting for the ball to begin. The gown she wore now was stunning beyond words. Its deep blue shimmered like the ocean, adorned with gold and silver embroidery delicate pearls and tiny gemstones. Today is just too strange. It all feels like a dream. And not just any dream, an unbelievably wonderful one. Just then, Cinderella saw a flicker of starlight ahead. Her fairy godmother, Layla, appeared before her. "Who are you?" Cinderella asked blankly. "Cinderella, you may not have realized it, but although you have a beautiful gown, you don't have matching shoes. Your stepmother was so frantic she completely overlooked that detail. But don't worry, I can make you a perfect pair of glass slippers." With a gentle wave of her wand, sparkling stardust fell onto Cinderella's shoes, transforming them into crystal-clear glass slippers. Cinderella was even more bewildered now. "What's going on today? Why is everyone suddenly helping me?" After making sure Cinderella had proper shoes, Fairy Layla finally let out a relieved sigh. She had made a promise to help Cinderella. After all, even if a certain magician, who appeared out of nowhere, stole most of the credit, at least I managed to do something. Layla consoled herself internally. "Remember, my magic will wear off at midnight. After that, the shoes will return to their original state," she reminded Cinderella. "But don't worry, your dress is so dazzling, no one will notice if your shoes change." Something fell off. Saying it out loud, Layla suddenly had a weird realization. "Wait, does that mean I was completely unnecessary? I was the first one here." Before she could dwell on it further, a clear, youthful voice suddenly interrupted. "If Cinderella takes off the shoes, does the magic still wear off at midnight?" "Why would that? H. Layla shrieked as she spun around, only to find Rhine standing right behind her. When had he gotten there? Rhine pointed at Cinderella's shoes and repeated his question. "You said your magic will disappear at midnight, right?" This was something that had genuinely puzzled him. It was one of those classic Cinderella plot holes. In the original story, Cinderella fled the ball in a panic as midnight struck, leaving behind one glass slipper. The prince then used that slipper to find her. But if the fairy's magic disappeared at midnight, why didn't the lost slipper revert to its original form too? Plot holes like this were common in fairy tales, legends, and epic stories. But they never stopped these stories from becoming classics. "Well, who cares? Magic is unpredictable anyway," Layla huffed. Rhine just smiled and turned towards Cinderella, who was still looking at both of them with complete confusion. "Cinderella, I know you must be very confused right now. You don't understand why people are suddenly helping you, or why Prince Eric personally invited you to the ball, right?" "Yes." Cinderella nodded, staring at the unfamiliar silver-haired boy and the fairy. Her stepmother was convinced that Cinderella had noble blood and some kind of hidden identity. But Cinderella herself had never entertained such unrealistic fantasies. She knew perfectly well she was just an ordinary girl with no background whatsoever. "In truth, a friend of yours asked me to help you. I'm a magician. I then contacted Prince Eric and orchestrated the events this morning," Rhine explained briefly. "A friend of mine?" Cinderella looked even more puzzled. "His name is Momo. You've spoken with him through birds." "Momo?" Cinderella's eyes widened in shock. After losing both her parents, after years of being treated like a servant by her stepmother and stepsisters, her only solace in life had been her conversations with Momo. They had never met in person. Their only connection had been through birds carrying their messages back and forth. Cinderella had been confined to the house, unable to leave, so Momo had always been the one to tell her about the outside world. She had always assumed Momo was a sailor or the son of a fisherman. After all, he often described the wonders of the sea, from strange fish to the deep-sea sights seen by divers. "So that's it. You're Momo's friends." Cinderella gasped, then realized something even more astonishing. "You even managed to ask Prince Eric for help? But he's the kingdom's crown prince. Momo actually knows people as powerful as you." Cinderella was utterly amazed. "Prince Eric? That's nothing. I'm the sage of the Rose Kingdom," Rhine thought to himself, amused. "When the ball is over, I must properly thank Momo," Cinderella declared. "You'll have the chance to meet him in person. You won't have to stay in that house any longer," Rhine said, pulling out a smooth, lustrous pearl from his pocket. "This is a gift from Momo. It's worth a fortune." Once the ball is over, you can sell it, live independently, and learn a trade to support yourself. You won't have to stay with your stepmother and stepsisters ever again. Honestly, this had only occurred to Momo after Rhine pointed it out to him. As a merman, Momo had no concept of human wealth. It had never even crossed his mind that the treasures casually scattered across the ocean floor could completely change Cinderella's life. This is so valuable. Cinderella's hands trembled as she accepted the pearl, carefully tucking it away. Her eyes stung with emotion. She knew the nightmare she had endured for years was finally coming to an end. Thank you so much. And thank Momo for me. After the ball, I must meet him face to face. He said we're the same age. I want to see what he looks like. Oh, by the way, Cinderella. Rhine changed the subject. You might have heard. One of the purposes of this ball is to find Prince Henry a fiancé. Do you think he'll set his sights on you? How could that be possible? Cinderella laughed at the idea. There are so many beautiful girls in the kingdom, so many elegant ladies with graceful dances and perfect figures attending this ball. I don't even know how to dance. Just being able to attend this ball, looking my best, is already more than enough for me. Good. Rhine nodded in relief. Prince Henry isn't exactly the most reliable person. You'll find out soon enough. After all, in the original story, this was the guy who decided to measure the feet of every girl in the country just to find a single person. Prince Henry isn't reliable? That can't be right, Cinderella mused over Rhine's words. In her mind, a prince was someone noble, untouchable, and extraordinary. In all the fairy tales she had read, princes were always handsome, brave, and completely flawless. Well, it's time. I'm off to the ball now. Thank you again, thank you, and thank Momo. Cinderella waved to the two magicians as she left. Watching her disappear into the ballroom, knowing that her life was about to change forever and that she was finally stepping into a better future, Fairy Layla smiled with satisfaction. Wait a minute. Fairy Layla suddenly realized something was very, very wrong. Cinderella actually thinks I'm working with you, that we were both sent by Momo. Fairy Layla grumbled. In reality, I don't even know you, and I've never even heard of this Momo person. She turned around angrily, only to find that the young magician had already vanished without a trace. At the ball, dressed in her luxurious gown, Cinderella looked breathtakingly elegant, radiant, and utterly enchanting. On the dance floor, she moved like a shimmering blue spirit. Prince Henry had been dancing with other young ladies, but the moment he caught sight of Cinderella, he was completely captivated by her unique aura. Drawn to her, Prince Henry approached and, seeing her bewildered expression, extended his hand to her in invitation. From that moment on, he danced with no one else. His hand never let go of hers. Whenever someone else asked Cinderella to dance, Prince Henry simply said, "This lady is my dance partner." However, Cinderella had never actually learned how to dance. Her movements were stiff and awkward, but her mind was elsewhere anyway, still spinning from the strange events of the day, the two magicians who had helped her, and that mysterious boy named Momo. She thought about how, once this ball was over, she would finally leave that house forever. She would finally be able to meet Momo in person. Her stepmother had never allowed her to travel before. After all, she needed Cinderella to do all the housework. But after tonight, she would never have to deal with that wicked woman again. As the clock struck midnight, the ball came to an end. Cinderella knew it was time to leave. She didn't hesitate for even a second. She turned and hurried away, completely unaware that the prince had reached out his hand, hoping to stop her. And just as if it were fate itself guiding the moment, in her rush, Cinderella lost her left glass slipper on the staircase. Prince Henry watched longingly as the girl who had enchanted him vanished into the night. With a wistful sigh, he murmured, "Wow, what a beautiful spirit. She's so different from all the noble girls I've met before. She even has this subtle, elegant fragrance. She should be my wife." As he reminisced about their magical dance, a sudden realization struck him. Oh no, I was so busy admiring her that I forgot to ask her name. Prince Henry was devastated. Just then he spotted something on the stairs, a single, glistening glass slipper. Is this her shoe? Picking it up, a brilliant idea popped into his head. What? Henry, you want to measure every girl's foot in the entire kingdom to find the one who fits this slipper, and then marry her? The king of the Western Asia kingdom was utterly stunned. Of course. Prince Henry grinned. That's the only way I can find the beautiful girl from a ball. Passing by at that moment, Aurora couldn't help but blurt out, I just don't understand. How is this even remotely logical? Can't you remember what her face looks like? Why do you need to measure feet one by one? Standing beside her, Ryan internally agreed. Yeah, Your Highness. Are you sure this isn't just an excuse to go around touching every girl's foot in the kingdom?